Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, the MHA What If 2.0, with another fanfiction. This is the first part. What if Deku was the leader of the Quintessence? All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Crystal clear. Hey Jokester. Are you sure about this? Jokester. Positive. I'm sending in weight force and soundtrap. Crystal clear. Who are they? Jokester. The 4th and 11th. Refer to the manual. Crystal clear. Still going to wear the regular outfit? Jokester. There is a large possibility that you will meet them, and I would rather not have your identities be revealed. Crystal clear. You got it, boss. Recap on the mission. I'm going to scout out the dark poison, give the info to Weight Force and Soundtrap, and help them clear out the drugs? Jokester. Correct. I look forward to the results. Asterisk, 13-year-old Izuka Midoriya leaned back in his chair, grinning with delight. In front of him, his screen showed the conversation between Jokester and Crystal Clear, and he hummed to himself as he scrolled through the messages. With another grin, he clicked to another tab, this one showing a list of names, quirks, and basic descriptions. Shoto Todoroki, first, the Pear Piper. Quirk, half and half, one half of his body is fire and one half of his body is ice. As Pear Piper, he uses both sides of his quirk to create steam to enshroud his enemies, then lowering the temperature to freeze his opponents. Hitoshi Shinso, second, a mind melt. Quirk, brainwashing, whoever responds to his words will fall under his control. They will do anything he says until physical contact breaks them out of it. As Mind Meld, usually uses his quirk to make his opponents fall asleep, but will sometimes have his enemies attack each other. Fumikage Tokoyami, third, a Black Mare. Quirk, Dark Shadow, a sentient quirk that lives inside him and will do whatever he says. Loses control when in darker places. As Black Mare, uses his quirk to increase the strength of his attacks without anyone else knowing. Can also fly using Dark Shadow. Chako Uraraka, 4th K Weight Force. Gender, female. Quirk, zero gravity, whatever she touches with 5 fingers will lose all gravity on it. Has controlled it to the point where she can increase gravity as well. As Weight Force, she usually uses both sides of her quirk at the same time to keep things floating in midair and sending them off as missiles. Momo Yayorozu, 5th, D Pentagram. Gender, female. Quirk, creation, she can create any substance as long as she knows the chemical makeup of said substance. As Pentagram, will use her quirk to make mainly gases that put her opponents to sleep. If that doesn't work, she will create a jelly substance that hardens and traps her opponents. Ijiro Kirishima, 6th, A Impenetrable. Quirk, hardening, he can harden parts of his body until they are almost unbreakable. Gives him extra strength? As Impenetrable, will only harden his hands to give them weapon-like abilities. He will also harden his feet while kicking to give him more strength. Mashireo Ojiro, 7th, A Tailor. Quirk, tail, he has a tail that he can control on whim. Uses advanced martial arts in his own way. As Tailor, only uses his tail when no one else can see it as a surprise attack, and will fight hand-to-hand without the use of his quirk. Denki Kaminari, 8th, A Stun Gun. Quirk, electrification, he can shoot electricity from his body in millions of volts. Doing so causes his brain to overload until he can't think straight as Stun Gun. Will touch his opponents and shoot small amounts of electricity until the opponent is paralyzed without anyone seeing why. Rikido Sato, 9th, A Force Break. Quirk, Sugar Rush, depending on the amount of sugar in his body, he gains strength for the more sugar inside his body. As Force Break, will secretly put sugar into his mouth so his opponents do not know his quirk. Hantas Zero, 10th, A Black Widow. Quirk, Tape, can shoot tape out of his elbows at varying lengths, can use them for capturing and movement. As Black Widow, will string his tape into smaller widths and use them to capture his prey in a large spider web-like structure. Kyukajire, 11th, A sound trap. Gender, female. Quirk, earphone jack, has earphone jacks at the end of her ears that can grow and shorten, hear things through walls, and when played into speakers can play her heartbeat. As sound trap, will insert her earphone jacks secretly into objects and destroy them using sound from the inside. Mezu Shoji 12th, A Kraken. Tender. Quirk, dupli arms, has multiple arms that can grow eyes, mouths, and hands on the end of each. As Kraken, will cover up his arms and make them look like wings with movable appendages. Mina Ishido, 13th, A Venom Queen. Gender, female. Quirk, acid, can secrete acid from her skin that melts through almost everything. As Venom Queen, will coat her hands with acid so everything she touches will disintegrate but nothing else. Toru Hagakure, 14th, A Crystal Clear. Gender, female. Quirk, invisibility, she is invisible and cannot turn it off, but can refract light to blind other opponents. As Crystal Clear, will refract light from her hands to blind opponents in a single stream of light. Tsu Azui, 15th, A Rainstorm. Gender, female. Quirk, frog, she has a frog mutation quirk which allows her to swim well, jump high, has a long tongue, and use an acid-like mucus. As Rainstorm, will quickly jump from walls to walls before attacking her opponent, making it look as if she had a speed quirk. Yuga Oyama, 16th, A Bright Beam. Tender. Quirk, navel laser, can shoot a laser from his navel, quirk overuse results in a stomach ache. As Bright Beam, will send off a small array of shots as circles to make it look as if he had a gun-type quirk. Tenya Ida, 17th, A Flash Kick. Tender. Quirk, engines, he has engines built into his legs that excel his speed and power into his kicks. As Flash Kick, jumps from wall to wall in the same way as Rainstorm to confuse his opponents. Kuji Koda, 18th, A Spymaster. Tender. Quirk, on E-Voice, he can talk to and listen to animals, who will usually do what he says. As Spymaster, will secretly use birds and other animals to scout out groups before reporting to Jokester. He is rarely used in any combat missions. Katsuki Bakugo, 19th, A Missile. Tender. Quirk, explosion, secretes nitroglycerin from his sweat that he can explode on command. As Missile, will shoot a barrage of long-ranged explosions to give off the same effect as Bright Beam's quirk, but with more damage. The paper that Izuku was looking at had more information than that, including deep-level analysis on each quirk, basic descriptions, and costume descriptions. Izuku cracked his fingers before resting them lightly on the keyboard, watching words fly across the screen. A small sound dinged from his computer, and Izuku took a small break from typing to check on the chat. It was another private one, but this time with Wait Force. Wait Force. Jokester? Hey boss, you there? Asterisk, Izuku frowned for a moment. The mission he had sent Crystal Clear on shouldn't have been done this quickly. Did something happen? Jokester, I'm here. Is something wrong? Wait Force? Wait Force. Maybe? You said you sent someone to scout out the Black Poison Gang, right? Well, I think they just got caught. Jokester, you and Soundtrap head in. I'll send in backup within the next minute. Wait Force. We got this. We'll report when we're done. See you then, boss. Asterisk, Izuku relaxed slightly before switching chats, this time to Rainstorm. Jokester, Rainstorm, you are still on patrol, correct? Rainstorm, yes sir. Smiley face. Jokester, smiley face to you too. I need you to go to these coordinates. Other members of the Quintessence need backup. Rainstorm, of course, Jokester. I'll be there in a moment. Asterisk, Izuku rubbed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. It was late at night, almost midnight, and Izuku knew he needed sleep. The last few nights he had stayed up early in the morning to check on a few things, and he was starting to experience the effects. Izuku pushed his chair out and slowly started spinning in circles, watching the ceiling. He knew that Rainstorm, Wait Force, and Soundtrap were reliable, but for Crystal Clear to be caught wasn't good. His eyes lingered on a paper taped to his board that was currently covered in red strings. Vigilante Group Quintessence on the rise. Is this the start? It read in bold letters. The rest of the article was about Quintessence stopping multiple attempts of drug trafficking and the like. even going as far as to tell about the Quintessence's smaller attacks. The article finally ended on the information they had on the group's leader, the mysterious jokester that no one had ever laid eyes on before. Izuku couldn't help but give a small chuckle. How the world would react when they found the leader of one of the most dangerous vigilante groups was a 13-year-old boy. Not only that, but every one of the members was around the same age. Added to the fact that each person was completely anonymous to other members of the group, most people wouldn't be able to wrap their heads around it. As far as the public saw, the Quintessence was a major group with years of experience. They worked together in groups of 3 or 4, and the groups worked together amazingly as if they were the same mind. No one had ever caught a member of the group, and most information they had to go off of was myths and red herrings. Izuku slightly closed his eyes, hand resting on his desk. One eye in memories, the other checking the computer for any updates. It happened 2 years ago. Izuku decided he was done with heroes, done with villains. Why was everything so black and white? Why couldn't it be just as it was? That was the first night Izuku went out as a vigilante, patrolling the streets where no other hero would be. Why did heroes choose who to save? Shouldn't they save everyone? Shouldn't they be like the heroes he had read about online and in the comics? Izuku started patrolling almost nightly, and soon enough the vigilante darker was a big thing. It happened on one of these patrols he met the first of the beginning of a new group. He was around the same age as Izuku, with red and white hair and heterochromatic eyes. He wasn't crying, but covered in bruises and cuts and hiding between 2 dumpsters. Izuku knew what that felt like. He experienced it almost every day. Izuku knelt down next to the boy, mask in place. "Hello there. Are you all right?" he said gently. The boy looked up. "Why, yes. I think so." Izuku gave a small laugh. "Those bruises and cuts tell another story. Here, let me bandage them up." Izuku pulled out a roll of bandages from his pocket and started wrapping it around the boy's arms. The boy looked up at him with confusion in his face. "Why are you helping me?" The question hurt Izuku more than he thought it would. "Because you need help, of course. I'm not just going to leave you here to get hurt. But you're not a hero. At least none that I know of." Izuku stopped bandaging the boy for a second. "What's your name?" "Shoto." "Well, Shoto, you don't need to be a hero to help people. That's a facade heroes put up to make themselves more special. Anyone can save anyone, it just matters if you are willing or not. All heroes I know say they are the only ones who help people." Izuku laughed as he finished bandaging Shoto's arms. "Well, you know the wrong heroes. Trust me. I wouldn't be here if I didn't believe that I could help people." "You wouldn't be in an alley?" Shoto asked, confused. "No, I mean I wouldn't be a vigilante." "A vigilante?" Izuku patted Shoto's bandages and sat down to get more comfortable. "They're kind of like illegal heroes who help people without a license to take down villains. They help people when heroes aren't there to do the job." "A vigilante?" Shoto whispered. "Yes. That's what I want to be." "Sorry, what?" Izuku asked. "You want to be a vigilante as well?" "Yes," Shoto said, his eyes firmly looking at Izuku. "I want to be a vigilante. That is how I'll help people." Izuku paused for a moment, thinking it through. After a few months of vigilantism, his mind had gotten much better at analyzing. "You know what? Sure. You can become a vigilante. We'll team up." "Team up?" "Yeah, it's actually more common than you would think. We'll form a team and be vigilantes." "Let's do that," Shoto said. "Vigilante team. We'll help everyone." Izuku smiled before standing up and reaching out a hand. "Of course we will. Welcome to the team, partner." Izuku and Shoto called the group Quintessence, after the dark energy. It was only about a month in when they came across another boy covered in scars in a darkened alley. He said his name with Shinso, and he had a villainous quirk. It didn't take long for him to join after meeting Izuku and Shoto. Slowly, but surely the group started to grow. The only problem was that Izuku never told anyone he was quirkless. He was sure they would be fine with it, but he had to be precautionary. He told the group that he wouldn't be going on patrols anymore. Instead, he would be the team strategist and help them all from behind a computer. The group, nearly 7 members by then, was a little skeptical until Izuku hacked into the target gang's security cameras and led them through the easiest takedown ever. Izuku changed his name to Jokester, and he faded into mystery. He never ended up telling others his personal name, so no one really knew. Due to Shoto's backstory, Izuku made it a new rule that each member was to remain completely anonymous, in case something from their personal lives came up. He helped regulate any new members and make sure that masks were worn around each other. Soon enough, Jokester became the leader of the vigilante group Quintessence. Shoto and Shinso, the first people to join, kept on finding new recruits, and soon the group had 20 members. Each member had a personal life and didn't know any of the other members. They would go on patrol twice a week and sometimes group up to take down larger gangs and criminal groups. They had been doing this for 2 years now, the newest member joining them around 7 months ago. Izuku had asked Shoto, or Pear Piper, because of his quirk, to stop recruiting more people. Really, 20 was a lot to handle even if Izuku wasn't on the field. The 5th member, Momo Yaoyorozu, had helped create most of the group's costumes and weapons. Izuku would sometimes make support items for those who needed it, like Aoyama, but would mainly stick to helping the members train their quirks, get stronger, and work better with others in their group. Which is where they were now. Another message dinged from his computer right before Izuku started to fall asleep. He jumped up, rubbing the sleep out of his eyes and pinching himself to stay awake before hurrying to see what the message was. Wait for it. Mission cleared. The drugs, mostly Trigger, are in the warehouse. You can send someone to pick them up now. Jokester, good job. Tell the others good job as well. Is Crystal Clear okay? Wait for it. A little bruised. Apparently some guy ran into her and knocked her out. But she's fine now. Jokester, that's good. You and the others can go home now. The police can handle it from here. Wait for it. You got it, boss. By the way, thanks for the tips about training in martial arts. They were really helpful. Jokester, you're welcome, smiley face. Have a nice night. Wait for it. Asterisk, Izuku clicked out of the private chat and entered a new one. He quietly giggled to himself, wondering how he should start the new chat. Jokester, I caught the weasel. Winking and laughing, winking and laughing, winking and laughing. Tsukachi has entered the chat. Tsukachi, excuse me? Who's this? Jokester, let's see. I'm a genius. I have a great sense of humor. Oh, I'm also the leader of the Quintessence, Jokester. Tsukachi, I should have known. Why are you texting me on this chat? You usually text me on a different one. Jokester, just wanted a reaction, winky face. Tsukachi, and what do I owe the pleasure? What did the Quintessence do this time? Jokester, you know the Black Poison group, right? Tsukachi, yes. And what does that have to do with anything? Jokester, we took them down. Drugs, Trigger, really, and everything. All in the same spot as normal. The abandoned warehouse? Tsukachi, so you are leaving us another present? Jokester, Tsukachi, go to sleep. Tsukachi has left the chat. Asterisk, Izuku laughed to himself. He was really glad to have started texting the detective as their insider at the police station. Of course, he was constantly trying to track them down and arrest them, but that was just a fruitless game of cat and mouse. Izuku had made sure the Quintessence were too good to get caught. But still, the detective's advice was good. Izuku really needed a good night's sleep. Living on coffee and ramen didn't help. Izuku powered down his computer and snuggled into bed. He was asleep before he had finished pulling the covers over himself. Izuku yawned, stretched, and sat up in bed. It was a few days after the Black Poison incident, and the event had been reported all over the media. Quintessence strikes again, and Black Poison stopped by famous vigilantes covered the newspapers. While Izuku was going on a walk, he purchased a newspaper to read what they thought about it. Dangerous criminals? Should be handled carefully if seen with a member of Quintessence? Izuku laughed. Who do they think the Quintessence are, villains? Oi, Deku! Kaken snarled, walking up to Izuku. Izuku jumped when the blonde boy suddenly appeared. Oh, hey Kaken, he stuttered. Whatcha reading, nerd? Just the newspaper, Kaken. Nothing more. Izuku said, showing Kaken the paper he had purchased. Kaken looked over it, especially looking at the Quintessence part. So you like the vigilante group? Yes. I think they are amazing. Being able to save people like that. Using their quirks in ways that the police can't catch them. They're so cool. Izuku said excitedly. Ever since Kaken had joined the Quintessence, Izuku realized he had actually started to get almost nicer. As if saving people had started having an effect on the angry Pomeranian. Tisich, Kaken sked, sulking away. They're just criminals. Izuku blinked. Usually Kaken would use his quirk the tiniest bit when meeting up with Deku. Maybe joining the Quintessence really was a good thing for him. And of course, Jokester also made sure the missile acted nicer around the other members of the group. Izuku pulled out his phone to check the time and realized that if he didn't hurry, he would be late. He hurried home and changed into different clothes before heading out again. He walked a few blocks down the street and entered a small bookstore. "Ah, Midoriya, I thought you would be late today," the cashier said, an older lady with a kind face. Izuku smiled. "Nope, Satko-san. Just got lost in my thoughts. Like every good dreamer." Satko laughed. "I'll handle the front. I need you to start rearranging shelves. They got hit by a tsunami when the middle school kids came in." "You got it, Satko-san," Izuku said, rolling up the sleeves to his work uniform and starting to get to work. He started rearranging shelves, slowly making his way through the bookstore. Inko Midoriya had been working overseas for nearly 3 years by now. She would sometimes send him money, but only enough for Izuku to survive. He knew she worked tirelessly every day to earn money, but sometimes that wasn't enough. When she had left to start working overseas, he had started applying for odd jobs around town. Babysitting, cleaning, helping with groceries and the like helped him earn money to buy anything he might want. Finally, after a while of helping out at the bookstore, Satko-san had offered him a legitimate job which he gladly accepted. It was fun and flexible in case he needed to go out as jokester in a moment's notice. Hours passed, and Izuku found himself waving goodbye to Satko before exiting the store. When he got home, he shed his work clothes and pulled on Jokester's outfit. For some reason, he found comfort in the slightly tight black suit and full-face mask that looked like a galaxy. Izuku fell into his chair and wheeled towards the computer. He got onto the group chat with every member of the Quintessence. "Jokester, everybody, I would like to propose a meeting. Tonight, 10 o'clock, at this location. Pear Piper, you got it. I'll be there soon. Flash, is there any reason? Not that I'll miss. Jokester, just a celebratory party of sorts. And I would like to talk about a few things. Is everyone in? I'll be there. Everyone else? Kurt, Jokester, perfect. See you all there. Remember to wear your masks. Asterisk, the sun had already set, so Izuku had no problem slipping out of his apartment and creeping through the shadows to get to the meeting place. It took him longer than he thought it would, but he was still the first there. He dragged some crates over to make makeshift chairs and arranged them in a half circle with another one in the middle. Finally, he sat down on the lone crate and waited. Flashkick was the first to arrive, which wasn't surprising with his engine quirk. Soon after, everyone started filing in and picking random spots to sit. Izuku tapped his mask and activated the voice changer that Pentagram made for everyone. Is everyone here? A chorus of agreements followed. Alrighty, let's get started, Izuku said. It felt weird to hear his voice be technologically altered. First of all, congratulations to Crystal Clear, Weight Force, Soundtrap, and Rainstorm for taking down the Black Poison group. Everyone politely clapped. And thanks to the rest of you for patrolling the other nights. If you wanted some statistics, we have taken down 72 larger groups, nearly 200 small-time gangs, and over 500 one-time criminals all within the last 6 months. Mind you, that's more than 95% of what heroes accomplish in 3 years. Woohoo! Impenetrable hooped, wearing the same voice changer. We're amazing. Yeah. We're helping way more than most heroes are. Venom Queen cheered, also wearing a voice changer. Izuku smiled from underneath the mask. Quintessence is growing into one of the most famous vigilante groups in Japan. With our fame comes even more supporters and followers who are saving people in their everyday lives. We're almost like a new symbol of peace. But I still have a few things I need to address. Number 1, I know that most of you volunteered to join Quintessence because you wanted to save people, with a few exceptions. Izuku saw Weight Force, who had joined for money, and Brightbeam, who had joined to get better at his quirk, slightly lower their heads. But why ever you joined, you're still here, and you are still making a difference. The manual I sent out doesn't tell anything about your names or ages or personal lives, but do know that we still care about them. If you have any questions, you can ask them now. Flash Kick raised his hand high into the air. What would happen if we got hurt while on patrol? Our friends and family will most likely notice a wound like that. Good question, Flash Kick. Izuku nodded. Right now, he felt as if Quintessence was like a volunteer charity work rather than an illegal group sending hundreds to jail. If you were to get hurt, Pentagram would help heal you with her quirk. I also know someone who could heal you, but I would rather not have to resort to that. Weight Force gave a small laugh. Of course, Jokester knows everyone, she said quietly. The second thing I wanted to talk to you about is a bit harder to swallow. I have information on the next target, except that it is much more gruesome than the others. If you don't want to hear, and would like to stay out of this mission, please raise your hand. Nobody raised their hand. It is incredibly dangerous and might get you killed. Also, this isn't a trafficking problem. It's human experimentation. Izuku added. Immediately the atmosphere dropped. The Quintessence had never taken on something like this. They usually did drug trafficking or small-time criminals. Are you sure? Taylor asked hesitantly. Do you think we're ready for that? Black Mare nodded. I can feel the darkness from here. We're in for a chaotic time. Izuku took a deep breath. If you don't want to do it, that's fine. I know we haven't handled something like this before. But after everything we've done, I believe you are ready. And if we don't do this, no one else will. I'm in. Pear Piper said abruptly. I'll do it. Pear Piper, are you sure? I mean, we could get killed. Black Widow said. Positive. Pear Piper said firmly. I joined to help people. Not to leave them helpless. When you say it like that, I'm in as well. Einmeld said. People can't say I'm villainous if I save people no one else would. I'm in too. Impenetrable said. This is way too manly to pass up. You extras are going to get killed. Missile scoffed. I'll come, but only to try out my moves. I'll come, Ribbit. Rainstorm said. If people need our help, I'll be there. I'm in as well. Weight Force said. I will come. Flashkick said. Me more, why wouldn't I come? It wouldn't be very bright if I didn't. Brightbeam added with a small pose. There's no way I'm missing out on this opportunity. Venom Queen said. Slowly, everyone chimed in their thoughts. At the end, everyone had agreed to come. Okay. Izuku breathed. We've all agreed. But I'm not going to talk about it today. We'll have another meeting in 2 days. What? Why? Forcebreak asked. Why can't we learn about it today? A loud murmur rose from the rest of the group. Izuku coughed into his hand to silence them. Yeah, about that. The first reason is that I want you to be able to sleep tonight. What I'm going to say is horrifying to say the least. And second is because we are being watched. A gasp rose from the group. Izuku raised his voice louder to be able to be heard from the group. Eraserhead, you can come down now. In the darkness of the warehouse, the Quintessence heard the sound of rushing air and something landing on the ground. A moment later, someone stepped out of the darkness. He was in his middle 30s with dark black hair and covered the front of his face. He wore rough black clothes and carried a large gray scarf around his neck. How long have you known I was here? The man asked, exasperated. Since the moment you came in. Izuku said slyly. Quintessence, I believe you already know him? Oh yeah. Crystal Clear laughed. I meet him at a lot of my patrols. Hey, Racerhead. Long time no see. Mindmeld greeted the visitor. I know him. Spymaster said quietly. Kraken extended an arm that grew a mouth. Yeah, he almost arrested me once. Hello to you all as well. Eraserhead drawled. Mind if I ask what you're doing right now? I usually meet you on patrols. Just a family-friendly meeting. Pear Piper said nonchalantly. Eraserhead said doubtfully. I know just about all of you, except for you. Who are you? Eraserhead asked, pointing to Izuku. Izuku took a low bow. It is a pleasure to finally meet you, Eraserhead. I am the one they call Jokester, the leader of the Quintessence. To say Eraserhead wasn't surprised would be lying. Wait, you're the leader of the Quintessence? He sputtered. Izuku laughed. Don't be so surprised, Eraserhead. Yes, I actually exist. Surprise, surprise. I just have never seen you before. What are you doing here? Izuku tilted his head. I usually meet with the Quintessence during meetings like this. I just make sure they're more private than this one. Eraserhead sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. I should tell you that the police are on their way. I informed them of this meeting. Then that's our cue to leave. Izuku said. Quintessence, we will meet again. Make sure to not get caught while going our separate ways. You heard the boss. Stun Gun said, standing up and stretching. See ya later, Jokester. Hey, Razor, don't try to follow us, Kay? We won't do anything illegal. Wait Force added as she exited the warehouse. Slowly, all the members left until it was just Eraserhead and Izuku. Well, Jokester, I would be lying if I told you I thought I would meet you tonight. Eraserhead started. I know, most people say that. Izuku said sheepishly. But hey, don't beat yourself up about it. Most of the Quintessence have only seen me a few times. Eraserhead scowled, probably confused about what Izuku had just said. Oh well, he wasn't going to stick around long enough for the pro hero to find out. Izuku saluted the hero goodbye before exiting the warehouse. He grabbed the grappling hook from his belt and fired, feeling the wind against his hands as he flew through the air. Behind him, he could hear the cop cars pulling around the warehouse and got a peek of Eraserhead talking to them. Izuku swung his way home using the grappling hook, silently sliding open his bedroom window before crawling through. He landed quietly on the carpet, looking around at his walls covered with paper and red string. Eri, he whispered to himself. Shaking his head, he jumped onto his bed and went to sleep. Shota sighed, burrowing his face into his capture weapon. It was 1 a.m. and he was still sitting in the dingy chair at the police department. Tell me again, you saw who? Tsukachi asked for the millionth time, scrawling down on a notepad. Jokester. I saw Jokester. The infamous leader of the Quintessence? Shota said, also for the millionth time. And what did he say? Look like? Act like? He says he usually meets with the Quintessence during meetings like the one I caught them in. He was short, maybe a tiny bit taller than 5 feet. He wore clothes that covered everything, including a full face mask that looked like the galaxy. He had a voice changer on, so I didn't hear his real voice. I mean, every member of that freaking group has a voice changer on, so it's not surprising. He acted relaxed and jokeful, which might be where his name came from. I don't know, something about him was different. He looked relaxed, but I could tell he was alert the entire time. And he noticed me the second I came in, which isn't something regular people can do. A quirk, maybe? The rest of the Quintessence has shown quirks like that, even if they aren't pointing to their real identities. I don't know. He just acts differently from the rest of the group. And something he said really threw me off. He said, most of the Quintessence have only seen me a few times. What's that supposed to mean? Shota sighed again. I really hate this group. Everything about them is a mystery, and we've gotten no closer to figuring them out from 2 years ago. Not totally true. Tsukachi said, still scribbling down furiously. You've actually seen Jokester, which is a major step up. And Nizu is working hard on figuring out their quirks? Shota snorted. I don't think I'll be surprised if even Nizu can't figure it out anymore. Their strategy is top-notch, as if the little rat did it himself. And I've seen their quirks for themselves. The way they use them isn't regular. What do you mean? Well, take Pear Piper for example. I could have sworn he had a steam quirk, but sometimes I would see little shards of ice after him. And sometimes I would see small bursts of flame, as if he has 3 quirks or something. And Wait Force, I used to think she had a gravity quirk until I once saw her fight with debris floating around her, as if she had a telekinesis quirk. Mind Meld could have a sleeping quirk, but I've seen him turn villains against themselves as well. It's just weird. They're purposefully using their quirks in ways we can't catch them. Tsukachi rubbed his forehead. I know. For pentagram, I've gone through every quirk listing for making gases, but I can't find a single match. Not only that, but the jelly she uses is a completely new substance. They're making it seem as if they have multiple quirks. I'll talk to Nizu about that. He'll take those quirks into consideration. Shota said. But for now, I need to finish my patrol. You got it, Tsukachi said. But before you leave, thanks for the info. And if you find any more of the Quintessence, make sure to question them, or bring them in if you can. Shota nodded. Yes, sir. Jaira had no idea how she was in this mess. She thought that this patrol was going to be like every other one. Criminals every now and then, but mainly her waiting on the top of a building for something to happen. But she was not expecting Eraserhead to show up. They had met a few times before. He mainly just helped her with the criminal and then she would disappear. That was the extent of their encounters. All except the one tonight. Jairu was patrolling as Soundtrap, a member of the Quintessence. She honestly didn't mind the name, plus she was able to choose the costume she patrolled in, so there were multiple bonuses. She had joined the Quintessence a little less than a year ago, after Stun Gun had saved her from a mugging. Jairu was infinitely glad for that, even if he was a little brainless at times, but she didn't know who he actually was, so there was little way for her to repay him. Jairu sat at the top of the building, her jacks plugged into the cement beside her. She was listening for any sounds coming from all around her, a scream or shout, gunshots, even the sound of someone getting tossed to the floor. Finally she heard it, the unmistakable sound of a knife being pulled from a sheath. Her jacks zipped back towards her ears and she was off, flying down the fire escape, although she could also say she was mainly falling instead of flying. Jairu raced around the corner and ran straight to a criminal holding out a knife to some random victim. She rammed into the criminal, catching him off guard and making him stumble a few steps to the side, dropping the knife. Jairu straightened back up, hands up and ready to fight. A vigilante, eh? The criminal growled. I won't let some wannabe hero stop me. Jairu slowly crouched down and picked up the knife, keeping her eyes trained on the criminal. I'm not just any vigilante, she said confidently, the voice changer hidden in her full face mask on. The name is Soundtrap. Recognize it? The criminal scowled. Yeah, I know it. You're part of that Quintessence group, right? You're all bark and no bite. I could take you easily. Jairu's jacks slithered around her arm, making sure to keep out of sight from the criminal. They plugged inside the handle of the knife and played a few of her heartbeats. Immediately, the knife shattered in multiple tiny shards, falling to the floor. The criminal watched in disbelief, not seeing the jacks return to her ears. Do you want to say that again? Jairu asked coolly. The criminal snarled, leaping forward and swinging their hands. Jairu nimbly dodged, inserting her jacks into the criminal's shoes. The criminal howled in pain as his shoes burst apart with a single heartbeat, his feet turning red from the deep sound. You'll pay for this, the criminal bellowed. Jairu got back into a fighting stance as multiple chains fell from the criminal's arms. A quirk? Jokester had taught her to analyze most quirks, so it wasn't entirely new. By the looks of it, he couldn't control them and could only release them from his skin. With the possible use of trigger, he might be able to control them. Better end this fight quickly. Jairu lunged, grabbing the criminal's arm and twisting around, slamming his back into the floor. At the same time, she inserted her jacks and destroyed one of the chains. The criminal screamed in pain. I didn't want to hurt you. But you're going to the police, Jairu said. She inserted her jack into the criminal's arm and instead of playing her heartbeat, simply played the sound of her teeth grinding. The criminal's eyes rolled back from the sound and he passed out. Jairu dropped his arm, standing back. She pulled out a small length of cord and dragged the criminal to the nearest pole where she tied his hands together. Are you hurt? She asked the victim, an older lady. The victim shook her head hard. Good. Get home before anyone else tries to steal from you, Jairu said. The lady struggled to her feet before running off into the lighter and more popular streets. Good fight, someone said. Jairu turned her head as Eraserhead landed near her. You've got some skills, Soundtrap. So, you know it was me, Jairu said. Good evening, Eraserhead. I thought your patrol wasn't until tomorrow? Eraserhead shrugged. I have a different assignment tonight, he said before his capture weapon whipped out, entangling Gyru. She gasped in surprise as the scarf tightened. I have orders to bring you to the police, Eraserhead said, his hair floating and his eyes glowing a demonic red. Gyru felt her jacks slacken as Eraserhead's quirk took control. He sighed. You have the right to remain silent, yada yada ya? Gyru glared, not that he could really see it. I'm not going to the police. Jokester will kill me if I get arrested. The scarf tightened, and Gyru sucked in a breath. Wow, that capture weapon was a lot stronger than she thought it would be. Jokester is also on our list. Every member of the Quintessence is, Eraserhead said. Gyru saw his eyes turn black for the slightest second, and that was when she struck. Her jacks played her heartbeat in a second. It may not have destroyed the scarf, but it definitely slackened it. Gyru wiggled out of the weapon before turning on her heel and sprinting away. She grabbed a flash bomb from her belt and threw it at the floor. From the following ow, she guessed Eraserhead hadn't looked away. Gyru turned onto a popular street, pushing through all the people walking the streets. She could hear Eraserhead close behind, a little slow for the fact he was nearly blind. Gyru tapped on her comm Quintessence. Quintessence, come in. I'm here, Soundtrap. Jokester said immediately. What's the problem? Gyru hissed as the capture weapon sliced through the air, barely missing her and entangling a poor bystander. Eraserhead's out of control. He's trying to bring in every member of the Quintessence, affirmed. Jokester said. Kraken, Taylor, stop your patrols and help out Soundtrap. I'll send in Flashkick and Pearpiper to help you get away. Hear you loud and clear. Taylor said. We're on our way. Kraken added. Gyru turned a sharp right, heading into a small alley. She ran up some crates and jumped onto a dumpster, not stopping as she ran and leaped forward, barely catching the bottom of a fire escape. She scrambled up the stairs just as she saw Eraserhead shooting out his weapon, missing her by inches. Stop trying to arrest me, she yelled at the pro-hero. Stop trying to run away, he responded. Gyru gritted her teeth, climbing to the top of the building. She realized her mistake when there was no other way to get down. The other buildings were too far away to jump. You're cornered, Soundtrap, Eraserhead said, landing on the edge of the roof. Just give up quietly and get arrested. We don't need to fight. I'm not getting arrested. I have a very important meeting I need to go to tomorrow and I'm not gonna miss it. Gyru said snarky. Why are you trying to arrest us anyway? You've never tried before. Detective Tsukachi has some questions he needs you to answer. Plus, what you're doing is illegal. You never had a problem with that before. I'm trying to help you, Soundtrap. One of these days your luck will run out and you'll get hurt. I'm just trying to make sure that doesn't happen. I don't need your hidash, Gyru said before cutting off. Something whistled through the air and buried itself into her arm. Immediately, she felt woozy and dropped to her knees. Out of her peripheral vision, she saw a small red dart. Sedative? Gyru weakly lifted her hand to her comm, Soundtrap reporting out. Cancel the mission. I'm going to get arrested. Sedative, she said. Soundtrap, wait. Are you sure? Pretty sure, she said sluggishly as Eraserhead walked up to her. She fell to her hands and tried to keep herself up. Taylor, Kraken, follow her from a distance. Track where she's going. Flashkick and Pearpiper, stand by. Jokester ordered. Gyru closed her eyes, and darkness washed over her. Gyru woke up and blinked her eyes. Where was she again? She groaned and sat up, wincing as pain shot through her arms. Her hands were handcuffed to the table she was sitting at. No one else was in the room. Gyru gasped and sat up. Right, she had been arrested. She was at the police station, sitting at the interrogation table. Thankfully, her mask was still on her face. With the way Pentagram had made them, no one would be able to take it off without the help of another member of the Quintessence. Soundtrap? Soundtrap, can you hear me? A voice crackled in her ear. Jokester, thank goodness. They didn't take my comm, she sighed in relief. I hear you loud and clear. Do you know where I am? Police station at Street. Don't worry, I've employed a few members to keep watch. We'll get you out soon. Roger. What time is it? How long have I been asleep? Only around a half hour, so around 11:30. Tsukachi has been busy with the criminal Eraserhead brought in, but he should come to interrogate you soon. Don't tell them you have a comm, but I will tell you what to say, Jokester said. Jairu rested her head on the table, being careful not to put any strain on her arms. Thanks, boss. You got it, Jokester said, his voice suddenly dropping until she could barely hear. Kyuka. Oh right, he knew everything about them. She had told him everything about her when she had first joined the Quintessence. The door creaked open, and a man in a trench coat and fedora walked in. Hello, Soundtrap. Pleasure to finally meet you. I can't say the feeling is mutual, Jairu said sarcastically, rattling her handcuffs. I'm literally tied to a table. The detective coughed. Yes, well, we had to make sure you wouldn't escape before we questioned you. My name is Detective Tsukachi. Are you going to tell me your real name? Say no. His quirk is lie detector, he'll be able to tell when you're lying. Jokester said. I don't think I will. The whole point of secret vigilante persona and all that, Jairu said. Just call me Soundtrap. Alright then, we'll begin the questioning. When did you first join the Quintessence? About the time you were saved by the Quintessence, Jokester said. Around the time the Quintessence saved my life, Jairu repeated nonchalantly. Which was? Jairu tried her hardest to tap her chin, which was a lot harder with handcuffs on. Oh, a time ago. 8 months? 9? Or was it past a year? The detective sighed. Can you tell me who the other members of Quintessence are? No, Jokester told her. Nope, she repeated. And why not? The detective asked. Their identities are the first and foremost secret, Jokester said. Oh, because our identities are the most important and first secret we have. It's like rule number 1. Don't tell anyone our real identities, Jairu said, shrugging her shoulders. You're being really tough, you know that, right? The detective asked. It's like my job. I act like this every time I'm around Stungun. But he's a certified idiot, so that's not saying much. Stungun? Oh yeah, he's another member. He saved my life a few times. He's really funny but honestly not the sharpest tool in the shed. Good job, Soundtrap, keep him talking. Crystal Clear and Black Mare are moving in, Jokester said. And then there's Missile. He's like an angry Pomeranian. Seriously, he gets mad at everything you say. Oh, and then there's Black Widow. He's pretty chill. I always thought his quirk was cool, Jairu said. His quirk? What is his quirk? Jairu stared hard at the detective. I can't tell you that. Jokester told me not to. And I follow what Jokester says. The detective shuffled the files on the table, placing a heavily marked one at the top. What do you know about Jokester? Jairu stalled. Just say you know nothing. It's the truth. Jokester supplied. Honestly, I know just about nothing. Nothing? Nothing. Like, every time he's around us he wears that galaxy mask. And he's got the voice changer pentagram made for him as well. I don't think I've ever seen his face. He usually stays behind a screen and helps us that way, Jairu said. Now that she was thinking about it, she really did know nothing about Jokester. But if she could rewind time and had to choose again, she would be right back here in a heartbeat. Jokester cared about her. The Quintessence cared about her. They didn't even know her and would still risk their lives for her. Sure, her parents loved her, but that was nothing compared to the Quintessence. They were usually gone on business trips and the like. The Quintessence were more like family to her. You don't know anything about Jokester? Nope. I haven't even seen him ever go on patrol. He stopped about a month before I joined. A month? That's around the same time Darker stopped, the detective quietly mused, writing everything down in the file. Flash kick, Pear Piper, stand by. Jokester said suddenly. Don't move. What's wrong? Pear Piper answered. I'm coming in. I have a few things I need to speak about to the detective. Spymaster, send some birds around to scout out the area. Not too much, others will notice. Pear Piper, on my count create a steam block and spread it through the entire police station. Pentagram, do the same from the other side. Affirmed. Pentagram said. Stun Gun, Black Mare, and Crystal Clear are in charge of getting Soundtrap out. Leave the detective to me. Jairu listened quietly as the Quintessence planned out what would happen. The detective was still writing down in the file before setting down the pen. Thank you for your time, Soundtrap. It was almost a waste. You'll be escorted to your cell until we can figure out how to get the mask off, in which you will be tried for breaking the law. Tsukachi said, standing up to leave. Don't let him go. Jokester hissed. Jairu jumped to her feet. I don't think so, detective. You see, my friends need you to stay here. The Quintessence? The detective asked, right before the lights flickered out. Jairu slipped her jacks into the chains at her wrists and quickly destroyed the handcuffs. She could hear a group of people entering the room. Tsukachi tried to say something before his words were cut off. Soundtrap, it's me, crystal clear, someone whispered in her ear. Did you hear the plan? Jairu sighed in relief. Yes. Let's get out of here. Leave the rest to Jokester. Stun gun, give us some light, the invisible vigilante said. Pear Piper, Pentagram, and Speakik are outside. Kraken will take us back to the base. Jairu heard the sound of electricity, and the room slowly lit up. She could see Stun Gun and Blackmare standing near the door. The detective was nowhere to be found. Jokester already reached him? Stun Gun explained, light radiating from his body. They stepped out of the interrogation room, straight into a hallway filled with mist. Jairu recognized Pear Piper's handiwork immediately, mixing in with the slightly lighter mist that Pentagram had created. Stun Gun smirked. Let's bail you out of jail. Izuku slipped his mask over his face, checking if the voice changer was on. He was standing on the top of the police station, watching the people move below. Now, Pear Piper, he said into the comm. He could see the vigilante clasp his hands together, and steam started pouring out. The boy with a swirling blue and red mask stepped forward, marching straight into the police station with mist curling around him. Pentagram, Izuku said. On the other side of the building, the dark red-masked vigilante also started spewing mist from her hands, walking into the police station confidently. I'm going in. Group A, wait outside for Group B. Just get Soundtrap out, Izuku said. He slid down the pole on the side of the station and slipped inside the building. Mist covered the entire area, and Izuku could hear shouts of confusion coming from the cellmates. Izuku silently crept through the mist. Everyone in the cells only got a small glimpse of a lone figure walking through the hallways, a mask of stars on his face. Blackmare, Stun Gun, and Crystal Clear were waiting outside a certain door. Izuku simply nodded, and Stun Gun slammed his hand down on the wall. Electricity crackled through the wall, and the lights flickered out. Izuku switched on the night vision from his mask as Blackmare broke the door down. Inside, he could see Soundtrap using her jacks to destroy the handcuffs while the detective was frantically searching for the light switch. What's going on, Dash? The detective started to say. Izuku slipped up behind him and clasped a hand over his mouth. The detective jumped in surprise and immediately started to struggle. Izuku pulled out a small pin and held it to the detective's throat as a threat. Don't move, he hissed. Unless you want to get pinned in the throat? Izuku dragged the detective out the door and down the hallway. He threw open a door to an empty interrogation room and tossed the detective inside. He may have been a little harsh, but oh well. Izuku closed the door behind him. Who are you? The detective demanded, before getting a good look at Izuku. Jokester? Hello, detective. Izuku responded. Thank you for the hospitality you showed to Soundtrap. And for getting her arrested in the first place. What you're doing is illegal, Jokester, the detective spat. I'm trying to help you from killing yourselves somewhere in the future. Not what I'm here to talk about. Izuku changed the topic. What do you know about Darker? The vigilante? He was a vigilante a little more than a year ago before suddenly disappearing. No one was able to see him again. Tsukachi said. Promise, that's all I know. Now why did you come in person? Instead of texting me? I needed to chat face-to-face with you. And I'm sorry if I act a little differently in real life. I honestly did not mean to hurt you, I just needed to get you alone. Also the truth. Tsukachi gave him a condescending glare. What do you need to know? Well, I needed to know about Darker. He is of personal interest to me. Personal interest? Do you know who he is? Where is he? Izuku stayed silent for a moment. I can't tell you that. Darker asked me not to. You've been in touch with Darker? The detective asked, clearly surprised. Everyone thought he was dead. Seriously, detective? I even have the same mask as Darker. How can you not tell? Izuku thought. Yes, I've been in touch with Darker. He asked me to destroy all of his evidence and files. What? Why? Darker has stopped the business, you could say. He wants to do something else. What does he want to do? Tsukachi asked suspiciously. Izuku waved his hand in front of his face. Things here and there. But I'm going to destroy the files, so you have no need to look for him. Izuku was about to say more before an alarm beeped from his watch. He looked down inside. Pear Piper and Pentagram have left, so I guess this is my cue. Don't tell anyone I was here, and don't try to arrest the Quintessence. It'll just end badly for both parties. Wait, Tsukachi started to say until Izuku swiftly pulled out a gun and shot the detective. A red dart flew through the air and buried into his legs. The detective collapsed to the ground seconds later, victim to Pentagram's sleeping serum. Nighty-night, detective, Izuku said. Before he left the room, he laid a small piece of cloth, painted Vanta black, on the table. To finish, he sprinkled small flecks of glitter on before dusting his hands off. Izuku walked out of the interrogation room. The hallways were still slightly filled with mist, but Izuku didn't want to take any chances and exited out the back entrance. He whistled a slight tune that sounded awkward with his voice changer as he strolled down the street. Once he had gotten far enough, he took off the mask using a specialized magnet and stashed it in his. The big meeting is tomorrow night, he said to himself, looking up at the small stars dotting the sky. I wonder how they'll react? Thank you all for meeting here. Izuku started out. In front of him, the members of the Quintessence sat on the floor in a large circle. In the middle was a small black box. No problemo, Forcebreak said. To make things clearer, what did you mean by human experimentation? Like, is it as bad as it sounds? Wait, Force asked shyly. Izuku took a deep breath before nodding. Yes, he clicked a button on the remote in his hand and the black box sprang up. A hologram of a little girl with white hair and dirty clothes fizzled into existence. This here is Eri. She's a little girl, 4 years old, and her quirk came about 6 months ago. All we know is that she may have killed her father, turning him into dust. You mean like that one guy we talked about? Shigaraki or something? Black Widow asked. Not quite. After her quirk came in, Eri's mother abandoned her to her grandfather, who happened to be the leader of the Yakuza gang known as the Shy Hisaikai. Sound familiar? About half of the Quintessence nodded their heads. The Shy Hisaikai had been a normal gang, less violent than some of the others they had seen, until suddenly bursting at the seams and turning dangerous. The leader of the Yakuza, only known as the boss, took her in as a daughter of sorts. That's when another character comes into play. He clicked the remote again and the image shifted to an older man wearing a cadmium green jacket with purple fur on the top. His face was covered with a red crow mask embroidered with gold. This is Kai Chisaki, alias Overhaul. He is the new leader of the Shy Hisaikai after the boss mysteriously slipped into a comatose state, most likely put in by Chisaki himself. Rainstorm shivered. I don't like the look of him. What does this have to do with human experimentation? Izuku exhaled. Chisaki's quirk is called Overhaul. It allows him to take something apart and piece it back together. Including humans. The hologram changed back to the girl, but this time she didn't have bandages wrapped around her arms. Instead, her bare arms showed pale white scars crisscrossing all the way down until her hands. Pentagram covered the bottom of her mask with her hand. No, can't be, no one is that inhuman, right? That's, Missile started, but for the first time he was lost for words. I told you it would be gruesome. Izuku whispered softly. Chisaki has been using his quirk on Eri in order to turn her body into weapons. As far as I can tell, Eri's quirk allows her to rewind living organisms to a past state. He's been experimenting on her to see if she is able to rewind quirks and destroy them completely. Impenetrable stood up angrily. That's horrible. She's only 4 years old. Her quirk is so powerful, Einmeld said. No wonder we have to act fast. It would be chaos if quirk erasing weapons were suddenly a thing. Exactly. Izuku confirmed. We don't have a lot of time. Our mission is this Saturday, 12:30 in the morning. I would say I need my beauty sleep, but for once this is more important. Bright Beam said, who usually did patrols in the evening instead of late at night. We will split into 4 groups. Izuku continued. Group A will take care of the outside, patrolling to make sure no alarm is sounded. Group B will take out all the henchmen and help get Group C and Group D through. Group C will take out the 8 precepts of death plus Chisaki, while Group D finds Eri and safely takes her outside, straight to the warehouse. Question. Flaskix said. Who are the 8 precepts of death? The hologram changed again, this time showing 8 men, each differently dressed but with the same crow mask fastened on their faces. Chisaki's main bodyguards. They are his strongest henchmen and will be the hardest to defeat. Kendo Rappa. One of the men grew bigger than others before shrinking back down and moving on. Toya Setsuno, Didoro Sakiki, Hikiji Tengai, Yu Hojo, Soromitsu Tabe, Shin Nemoto, Rikia Katsukame, as well as Hari Kurono, who is Eri's main caretaker. I will send you their quirks so you can know how to beat them. What are the groups? Group A will be Spymaster, Crystal Clear, Stun Gun, and Bright Beam. Group B will be Weight Force, Black Widow, Force Break, Taylor, and Venom Queen. Group C will be Pear Piper, Mind Meld, Impenetrable, Sound Trap, and Missile. Finally, Group D will be Pentagram, Rainstorm, Flash Kick, Kraken, and Blackmare. Izuku continued talking, telling them as much as he could about the mission. Although the meeting started around 10:30, they ended up finishing around 2 in the morning. Izuku handed them each a flash drive containing all the information and asked them to review a few more times before they went on their mission. Izuku waved them goodbye, waiting until every person had left before leaving himself. He quietly slipped through his bedroom window, like always. It didn't take long for his eyes to close as exhaustion pulled him under. That night, he dreamed of hospitals and doctors with sharp teeth and bullet holes through their heads. The week flew by, and soon enough it was Friday night. Izuku carefully put on all his gear, double-checking to make sure everything was perfect. The Quintessence didn't know that Jokester was going on the field, and Izuku wanted to keep it like that. All they knew was that Jokester would be helping them from the sidelines, like always, by giving them directions and fighting tips. But Izuku had another item on his agenda. Izuku left his room just as the sun was going down. It was still another 3 or 4 hours until the actual mission would start, and he was determined to make the best of his time. First, Izuku walked around his neighborhood until he came to the Yakuza hideout, an old Japanese minka that looked rather cheerful for having so much blood inside. Instead of entering through the gates, Izuku turned on his heel and walked the other way, stopping at a darkened alley about a block from the minka. Izuku carefully set a large bag on the ground between 2 dumpsters and opened it. Multiple support items as well as a few first aid kits lay strewn inside it. Izuku laid them out, making sure to put each support item in a place where no one could see them before stuffing the bag into his back pocket and leaving the alley. By now, the sun was almost gone and a slight breeze chilled the air. Izuku looked at his watch and sighed. He was almost late. The greenette quickly scaled the nearest fire escape and perched on the corner of the roof. It didn't take long for his first victim to exit the minka. Hikiji Tengai, Izuku mused in his head. The oblivious member of the 8 precepts of death, also called the 8 bullets, kept walking, passing straight underneath Izuku. Izuku took a small metal rod from his pocket and inserted the smallest microchip. He placed the rod to his lips and blew hard. His aim was true, and the small microchip embedded into Tengai's neck. The Yakuza member swatted at the air as if a mosquito was buzzing around him before still walking on. Izuku grinned. 1 down, 8 to go. It took longer than he had hoped, but within the next 2.5 hours Izuku had tagged each member of the 8 bullets, as well as Chronostasis, as they walked around the minka. The small microchip had been a special tracking system Izuku had created himself that allowed him to monitor where they were and if they were using their quirk or not. Jokester would certainly find it useful while he was guiding the members of the Quintessence. Izuku glanced at his watch. 12:20. He only had a few more minutes. He crept down the fire escape and landed in the alley. Looking around, Izuku weaved in and out of alleyways until he was in the back of the Minka. He flattened himself against the wall and waited. "Jokester, are you there?" Pearpiper asked from the comm. Izuku tapped on it twice. "Yes." "How many have gathered so far?" "We're still waiting for Bright Beam and Force Break, but everyone else is here." "Good." "Spymaster, start sending out birds and send out 2 rats. No more. Everyone else, meet up at street and turn left into the alley with the broken fence by the side." Izuku waited a few moments before continuing. "Your support items are inside, but you'll have to look for them. Soundtrap, I would like for you to take one of the first aid kits. Taylor, you take the other one. If any of you are to get hurt, fall back immediately and tend to your injuries. Do not keep fighting until I say so." "Got it?" Black Widow said. "Group A, surround the perimeters on the north, east, and west sides," Izuku said, deliberately leaving out the side where he was camped out. "Stun gun and bright beam, take out anyone who tries to enter the Minka and hide them in the surrounding alleys. Crystal clear, help the other groups enter the base. Spymaster, equip one person from each group with a sparrow in case something happens." Izuku stood up. It was time to take action. He ran from his hiding spot, nimbly leaping over the fence without a single guard spotting him. He crouched in the surrounding bushes until the patrolling guard left before slipping into the back entrance of the Minka. "Relatively normal looking," Izuku whispered under his breath. He prowled around the house before stopping at another normal-looking section of the hallway, a small alcove with a pretty vase sitting on a shelf. Izuku silently moved the vase aside, revealing a number of bricks. He pressed down on the bricks in the sequence he had seen from the security cameras, and the secret passage whooshed open. Izuku jammed a small stick into the doorway to keep it open before continuing. "Is Group C and D through yet?" he said into his comm as he walked down the stairs. "Almost there, Ribbit," Rainstorm responded. "Good. Once you're inside, the passageway you need to take is in the main hall. You'll see it," Izuku continued, entering the maze of a facility. He discreetly dropped a piece of paper on the floor before turning left. He wove through multiple hallways that all looked the exact same. The facility was almost silent, and Izuku avoided any hallways with others walking down them. Finally, Izuku arrived at a plain iron door. He fidgeted for a bit before sliding down his mask and turning the handle. Light shone in the darkened room, illuminating a single bed with the shape of a person on it. Izuku froze, his breath coming out in short stops. The bed shifted, and the figure sat up. Izuku's fingers twitched as the blanket fell away, revealing a little girl with off-white hair and a pale horn peeking out from her forehead. Who are you?" the girl stuttered, and Izuku's heart broke. Her voice was quiet and gentle but weak, as if it would shatter within a moment's notice. Izuku ran his hair through his green curls, knowing full well that she wasn't seeing Jokester. She was seeing Izuku Midoriya. "I'm here to save you," he said quietly. "Are you Eri?" He didn't need to ask that. He had been staring at her photo for the past few weeks. Eri didn't answer, just looked at him with big, curious eyes. "May I come closer?" Izuku asked. Eri didn't shake her head but also didn't say anything. "Jokester, we're inside the facility. Where to now?" Pentagram crackled inside his comm. Izuku slowly raised his hand to his ear, keeping his eyes on Eri. "There is a paper on the floor, a map of the facility. Has Group C encountered the 8 bullets? Have you been using the trackers?" "We see the paper. So far we've only encountered Didoro Sakaki, who Mind Meld took down. The rest of Group C is searching for Kendo Rappa." "Keep at it," Izuku said, dropping his hand. He took a baby step forward. "Who were you talking to?" Eri asked suspiciously. "Friends. Don't worry, we're here to get you out of here," Izuku said. "May I pick you up?" Eri slowly nodded. Izuku took a few more steps before crossing the distance between the two and sitting on the edge of the bed. "You have very pretty hair," Izuku said, stroking Eri's hair. "Here, let me pick you up." Eri stayed still as Izuku wrapped his arms around her and picked her up. A small gasp escaped her mouth and Izuku smiled, trying to calm her down. Don't worry. I'm not part of the 8 bullets. Izuku soothed. His voice dropped. We know what you've been through here. We don't want you getting hurt again. Eri stayed mute, but Izuku could see small glistening tears in her eyes. He hugged her tighter and took a step away from the room. Jokester, we've taken out 3 of the 8 bullets? Impenetrable said. Mind Meld is a little tired and I've already used Unbreakable, but we're good so far. Alright. Meet up with Group D at the red dot on the map. Chisaki hasn't been seen and I don't want to take any chances. Izuku said. Eri tensed at the name. Izuku left the room, whispering soothing words into Eri's ears. He turned down a hallway and gently placed Eri on the floor. I need to go now, okay? It'll be okay, my friends are going to come pick you up soon. Izuku said. You'll be safe. Eri shook her head hard, but Izuku still slipped from her grasp. I know, but they will take care of you. I promise we'll meet again. He patted her head and stood up. He could hear the 2 groups working their way down and he needed to hurry. He sent one last reassuring look at Eri before leaving. Groups C and D finally turned the corner, seeing an almost abandoned hallway. The only person in the room was a little girl, sitting against the wall, looking up at them. Where did Greenie go? She asked, but they had no answer. Izuku put his galaxy mask back on right before Flashkick notified him that they were with Eri. Group D, get her out and bring her to the warehouse quickly. If you need to, Flashkick can run ahead while the rest of you create a distraction. Group C, escort them out. It looks like the final bullets know what's going on and have grouped at the entrance. Whatever you do, keep her safe. Izuku ordered. Where are you right now? Rainstorm asked. Are you the one who opened the door and left the map? Izuku debated telling them. Yes, I have a bit more business to conduct. I'll meet you at the warehouse after I'm done. Wait, Jokester, before you go. Pentagram said. Eri was talking about some green person. Do you know who that is? I sent someone ahead to make sure she was okay. You did? I have a lot of contacts. Maybe he'll meet you guys someday soon. But mission first. Izuku clicked off the comms, a grin growing on his face. That should be a good enough red herring for right now. Izuku stopped at another door, not even bothering to pause as he kicked it down. Inside, a lone chair sat in the middle of the room surrounded by machines and test tubes. Izuku's blood boiled at the sight of small red stains splattering the chair and counters. He pulled the support items bag from his pocket and reopened it, heading straight for one of the counters. As he filled the bag with an assortment of test tubes and equipment, he glanced over the scientific notes pinned to the wall. Satisfied with his haul, he slung the bag over his shoulder and ripped the papers off. One match and plenty of ashes later, he retreated from the room, the smell of smoke clinging to his clothes. We've encountered Chisaki. Repeat, we have encountered Chisaki? Weight force suddenly blasted into his ear. Izuku jumped. Group B, detain him in a single area but don't get close. I'm sending Group C immediately. Group D, you might want to quicken your pace a little. Izuku commanded, hissing under his breath. It wasn't supposed to go like this. He took a step forward before a voice stopped him in his tracks. Going somewhere? The voice said, and someone stepped forward from the shadows. Hari Kurono, also known as Chronostasis, glared at him. So you're the one planning this little raid. It won't work and we'll get the girl back soon enough. I'd like to see you try. Izuku spat back. He carefully dropped the bag onto the floor and got into a fighting stance. Pride is a deadly opponent, you know. Chronostasis sked before charging forward. Izuku was too fast and whipped around him, using Chronostasis's force to slam him into the wall. A pleasing click sounded, and the quirk-suppressing handcuffs Izuku had hanging from his belt locked into place around Chronostasis's wrists. Chronostasis growled in rage. You can't do this to me. Wrong. I can do whatever I want to you. It's your punishment for hurting a little girl. Izuku muttered, grabbing the bag again. The cops are going to raid this place by morning, so I wouldn't try resisting. It would only end up worse for your little gang. He walked away, leaving Chronostasis screaming at the air. Funny, he didn't feel an inkling of regret. He tapped back into his calm. Chronostasis is down. How is the situation going? Missile is keeping Chisaki back while everyone else takes down the last bullets. Soundtrap said hurriedly. Flashkick and Blackmare already took Eri back to the warehouse. Soundtrap, use your quirk to send sound waves through the ground so Chisaki can't break it. Stun Gun and Black Widow, keep Chisaki in the same spot and stop him from moving. Venom Queen, melt any rock spikes Chisaki sends to the others. Impenetrable, protect the people fighting the 8 bullets. Izuku said, his walk turning into a jog. He checked down at his tracker and noted that the rest of the bullets were surrounded by the Quintessence. I'm on my way. Roger that, Pentagram said, and the comm clicked out. Izuku sprinted down the hallway, turning through the facility as fast as he could. Any unlucky person who got in his way would be defeated before Izuku even had to slow down. He flew up the stairs, coming to a stop at the Minka's front courtyard. The Quintessence had already taken care of the 8 bullets, who were all unconscious and tied up with Pentagram's jelly substance. The members had all focused their attacks on Chisaki, who only looked annoyed. Wait Force! Izuku yelled. Wait Force immediately turned around, a cluster of rocks orbiting her like Saturn's rings. I need you to get everyone away. Wait Force didn't question it, instead motioning for everyone to step aside. Venom Queen spat out one last stream of acid, which surrounded Chiaski and melted away a circle of rock around him. Izuku slowed down, taking cautious steps towards the leader of the Yakuza. Chisaki, he said, his lips curling up in disgust under his mask. Chisaki looked at him with a face between anger and annoyance. Jokester. So, you really are real? Izuku stopped, a few yards away from Overhaul. In some areas? Chisaki narrowed his eyes but didn't budge. You're going to lose. I'll give you one chance to bring the girl back to us. Izuku held up his hand as Missile stepped forward menacingly. He never would have been able to do that as Izuku Midoriya, instead regarding Chisaki with a calm look. Chronostasis told me the exact thing before I took him down. No, Overhaul, today, you are the one who is going to lose. Izuku pulled out the pistol he had strapped around his thigh and cocked it. The Quintessence jumped back, startled by the sudden appearance of weapons. Chisaki looked at the gun and laughed. Are you really going to shoot me? You know that won't work. Maybe, Izuku replied, his hand wavering. But why not? He finished before shooting the gun. Chisaki's eyes widened as the bullet flew through the air, embedding straight into his shoulder. Overhaul gasped in pain, his hand immediately covering the wound. He looked up at Izuku with fear in his eyes, and pride swelled up in Izuku's chest. The hunter becomes the hunted. What did you do to me? Chisaki wheezed, falling to a knee. The same thing you would have done to us. Your bullets may not be finished, but they are the best things we can use right now. Izuku said, cocking open the gun and revealing 2 more dart-like bullets, a deep red in color. You've lost Chisaki. Chisaki gritted his teeth. What kind of hero are you, shooting me? He yelled. The illegal kind. Black Widow, tie him up in a web. Make sure his hands won't be able to touch anything. The rest of you, meet back at the warehouse. What about these guys? Stun Gun asked, nudging the unconscious bullets with his foot. The cops will be here in about an hour or so to arrest them all. And don't worry, all of Chisaki's experiments have already been burned. No one will be able to finish his work. The members of the Quintessence visibly relaxed. Izuku tapped into his comm spymaster, you should start heading back first. Keep a few eyes out for any suspicious movement around the warehouse. The Quintessence started to leave the Minka, but Pentagram stopped in place. Jokester, do you mind if I do something? Izuku looked at her, confused. Go ahead. Pentagram walked up to where Chisaki was hanging in a spider web made of tape. This is for Eri, she said, before socking him in the jaw. Chisaki spat up blood as the rest of the Quintessence roared their approval. Pentagram turned back, a smile in her eyes. Thanks, Jokester, she said before catching up with the rest of the group. Izuku shook his head and smiled. He remembered when she had first come to him, a girl with a dream of changing the world but without any confidence to do it. Yeah. Joining the Quintessence had changed nearly every single one of them, and in good ways too. The Quintessence each took their own special way getting to the warehouse. Black Widow preferred swinging from pieces of tape, while Weight Force zoomed overhead, using a grappling hook to pull her through the air. Rainstorm hopped alongside Venom Queen, who used her acid to create a slippery path she could slide on. Eventually, they all met back up with Flashkick and Blackmare, who had been waiting with Eri at the warehouse. When Izuku walked in, he saw Blackmare standing to the side of Eri and Flashkick, who were sitting on crates. "I'm supposed to join the darkness, not babysit," Blackmare scoffed. "Yeah, I think Eri was ecstatic to be babysat by the Lord of the Darkness," Soundtrap joked, taking a seat. Everyone soon joined her with a yawn contagiously diffusing throughout the group. Izuku didn't bother taking the middle this time. "Congratulations everyone, we just defeated a possible world evil in the span of 3 hours. "Wait, it took 3 hours? It felt shorter than that," Stungun said. "It's about 4 in the morning," Izuku informed them. "But before we leave, we have a few more orders of business to take care of. Everyone, say hello to Eri." Eri shrunk back, scared from all the attention. "Oh my gosh, look how cute she is." Crystal Clear, who had been part of Group A, squealed. "She's so cool." "Calm down, Crystal Clear." Izuku chuckled. "We're going to be keeping Eri here for a while until she learns how to control her quirk, as well as to keep her safe. I will be scheduling your times a little differently right now, and we will be going on less patrols. Easy. Anything to spend time with cute little Eri," Weight Force said. Eri blushed, hiding in her hair. Izuku gave a small smile. "I know it's 4 in the morning, but how do you feel about a little decorating party?" "Seriously?" Crystal Clear shouted. "Just, let's do it, let's do it, let's do it." "Pentagram, you can use your quirk if you want, but I would prefer that you save it up." Izuku pulled a small credit card from his pocket. "Who's ready for some late night / early morning shopping?" I am, Crystal Clear said. "Me too," Venom Queen added. "I'll go," Pentagram volunteered. "I'd rather shop than use my quirk." Whoa, Pear Piper said. "No one is going till I know whose credit card that is." "It's your dad's," Izuku informed him. "Carry on. Spare no expense," Pear Piper said. "All right then." Crystal Clear, Venom Queen, Pentagram, Impenetrable and Force Break will go shopping, the latter two being there to help carry furniture. Everyone else, I'll send the new location for Eri's home in a second, meet us there. What do we tell our families? Just the regular. You were working the graveyard shift at your job and it ended up going over because there was so much work to do. Sounds good? The members nodded. Izuku decided it to be a collective white lie to have everyone working at some store or another to cover up for their patrols. He would even send email and checks to their families to keep up the pretense. He gave Weight Force a little more than the rest because she needed it more. "Break," Izuku said, clapping his hands. The Quintessence immediately got to work, most heading over to another abandoned warehouse, this one smaller and harder to find. The rest headed off to the nearest furniture store to start buying for. By the time the group had gotten back, the new warehouse had been swept down and cleaned until every inch sparkled. A good thing, because the group came back with 2 entire U-Haul trucks of decorations. Pentagram went straight for the expensive stores. Venom Queen laughed, helping take a box out of the truck. She's a rich kid for sure. With the entirety of the Quintessence helping, they finished decorating around 7 in the morning. By the end, the warehouse had been transformed into a cozy house, complete with 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, and a small extra room for whatever they needed. They made the rooms by pushing stacks of crates around, creating the walls which they covered in a light purple paint Crystal Clear had bought. The first bedroom, Aries, was the largest. It had a twin-sized bed tucked into the corner, a little table with a few chairs in another corner, soft and fuzzy rugs covering the ground, strings of lights hanging from the fabric ceiling, and multiple stuffed animals thrown around the room. The entire room was a multitude of purples and turquoise, which Rainstorm said was the best color combination. The second and third rooms were relatively plain, really only for a guest or if a member was staying the night with Eri. The first was sparsely decorated but in a clear shade of gold, bright beam almost fainted from the sparkle, while the second was a bit more lively and decorated in green and dark blue. The kitchen was incredibly modern, with sleek white counters and a metal sink. Izuku didn't want to risk calling a plumber, so he asked Waitforce, Froppy, and Taylor if they could get the plumbing done. Thankfully, they could. The dining table was large enough to accommodate everyone in the group, plus Aries' spot right in the middle. The living room was large but still cozy, with couches arranged in a circle and a coffee table in the middle. Soundtrap had nailed some paintings into the crates to lighten the room up, and Pentagram had even created some metal frameworks to hang up. All in all, the warehouse was a suitable living place. Izuku looked around. They had hung curtains from the dusty windows to keep people from peeking in, covered the floor in rugs, and added small plants and the like to counters and shelves. Eri turned in slow circles, her face a look of amazement as the light streamed through the windows and illuminated the warehouse. "Is this mine?" she asked in awe. "We probably could have spent more money, but this will suffice." Pear Piper said evilly. "Yeah." Impenetrable said. "We're gonna take turns taking care of you, so you'll be able to see every one of us." "Oh my gosh, we can play family," Crystal Clear said excitedly. "This is going to be so fun." "Can we do that, jokester?" Crystal Clear looked at Izuku, and even though she had a mask on, Izuku knew her eyes would be big and round and looked at him pleadingly. Izuku laughed. "Sure, go ahead. I'll help her with her quirk whenever it's my turn, so you guys can focus on the babysitting part." Eri tilted her head. "What's family?" The Quintessence stilled at this. They had been briefed on how hard her life had been, but they weren't expecting it to be this drastic. "Family is a group of people who will always be together," Izuku explained. He crouched down to Eri's height. "They will always be there for you, even when you are sad and alone. Do you understand?" Eri's face scrunched up in concentration. "I think I do." Izuku smiled. "Good. I'll be your older brother, jokester," he said before introducing each member of the Quintessence, deliberately making sure he called them brothers and sisters. "It's okay if you don't remember them all, you can get to know us while we live here." Eri nodded, looking around at each mask peering down at her. "Can I see what you actually look like?" "Maybe someday. These masks are to protect us from outsiders, so we have to keep them on at all times." "Can I have a mask too?" Eri asked. Izuku froze for a moment before chuckling. "Of course you can have a mask. What color would you like it to be?" Eri thought for a moment. "Green," she said softly. "Like the green boy that helped me?" Izuku ruffled her head. "I think that's a wonderful idea." "I'm sure Greenie would love to hear that." Eri looked up at him. "You know Green Boy? I was the one who sent him to you," Izuku said. He looked at the Quintessence with a look of, "I'll tell you later," before turning back to Eri. "You can call him Greenie, maybe you'll be able to see him again." "Pentagram, a mask?" Pentagram walked up, a small green eye mask appearing in her hands. Izuku helped fasten it onto Eri's face, making sure it fit around her horn. "This mask will always help us find you. Do you like it?" Eri reached up and touched the mask, running her finger along the sparkly fabric and intricate metalwork covered in jewels Pentagram had added. "I do," she said. "That's good," Izuku said. He stood up and faced the Quintessence. "All right, everyone, that's it for now. Go home and get some sleep. Kraken, Spymaster, and Blackmare will have the first shift." Mind Meld shifted uncomfortably. Jokester, do you mind if I stay here for a few days?" "You don't want to go back." Izuku's face softened. "You lost the key again?" "Yeah, Mind Meld swallowed. "They took it and broke it. I need another few." "Okay, I'll print you out 3 more. You can always contact me if you need help." Looked at the ground. "Thanks." Stun Gun looked between Mind Meld and Izuku, obviously confused. Am I missing something? Did Mind Meld lose the keys to his house?" Izuku studied Stun Gun. "Nova," he said finally. Nova was the code word for something that was personal to the member of the Quintessence. Whenever Izuku said it, it meant that they shouldn't push the subject. "Anyway," Waitforce said, yawning. "I need to get home. My family might start to worry. See you guys later." "Bye, Eri." Waitforce exited the warehouse using the new dark wood door they had bought, followed by the rest of the Quintessence excluding Mind Meld, who went straight for one of the guest rooms. Izuku watched them go before turning to Eri, who still had the green mask on. Eri, do you want to learn how to use your quirk? She looked up at him, surprised. Can I learn how to use it? Oh no. Father always said it was a Siukur curse. It isn't a curse, it's a blessing. Izuku said. Trust me. But I hurt people. Izuku crouched down to her level again. Eri, do you know what your quirk does? Her eyebrows scrunched underneath the mask. It can you turn back time? Not exactly. Your quirk can rewind people, turn them back to what they were before. You see, Eri, if someone gets hurt, then you are the one who can heal them. You can make the injuries disappear. I can. Yes. So the more you learn how to control your quirk, the more you can help people. Can I join you? After I learn how to control my quirk. Join us? Yeah. Like save people, how you did with me. Eri said. I want to save people. Izuku smiled and patted her head again. Of course, Eri, of course. Come here, Eri. Venom Queen said. Let's play family. Okay, miss. Eri said happily. She bounced up to Venom Queen and smiled up at her, still wearing the green mask. Ever since Miss Pentagram had made it for her, she had only taken it off for baths and sleeping. So cute. Venom Queen squealed. But don't call me miss, remember. I'm older sister Venom Queen. You can also call me Pinky. Like my mask. Pinky? Eri said, tilting her head. Okay. Older sister Pinky, she grinned. Venom Queen stumbled backward, placing a hand on her heart. It's so pure, she whispered. You hit me where it hurts. Venom Queen made a big show of falling down on the floor, acting as if she were dead. Come on, Venom Queen. Stun Gun said. You can't play family if you're dead. Venom Queen shot up. You're right. Let's play family. I'll be the mom. They were sitting in a circle in the middle of the living room in the warehouse. Stun Gun, Venom Queen, Spymaster, and Mindmeld had the shift today. Spymaster and Mindmeld were busy making mac and cheese for lunch while Stun Gun and Venom Queen played with Eri. It had been almost a week since Eri had been saved. The Quintessence had taken a short break of patrols to take care of their little sister, which had secretly been making Tsukachi and Eraserhead go insane looking for them. Mindmeld hadn't left the warehouse once, to the confusion of the rest of the Quintessence. Jokester played it off, and no one pushed it. The infamous leader of the Quintessence was currently away, doing who knows what in his personal life. Bon appetit! Mindmeld yelled from the kitchen. He walked in with a steaming pan of mac and cheese, Spymaster following quietly behind him. It's a phrase I learned from Brightbeam. Means enjoy your meal. Sorry, Eri, we're having mac and cheese again. That's okay. I like Big Brother Mindmeld's mac and cheese. Eri said happily, sitting in her chair at the dinner table. She dug her spoon into her bowl and kicked her legs as she ate. Everyone at the table smiled whenever they looked at her face, even if they didn't want to. One by one, she was catching them all in her trap of cuteness. Even just hearing about her put a smile on their face. What do you want to do after lunch, Eri? Venom Queen asked. Ooh, we should do nails. Actually, Venom Queen, Mindmeld cut in. The Quintessence is meeting here tonight for dinner. I was wondering if we all wanted to make a special dessert for when they come over. Just, let's do it. Venom Queen cheered. Eri, do you want to bake something? Sure. Eri said cheerfully. I'll do anything my big sister and brothers want to do. We first have to find a recipe. Spymaster, do you mind cleaning up the table? Mindmeld asked. Thanks. Okay, what are we gonna make? I was thinking of either chocolate chip cookies or cake. Oh, no. We have to do something fancy. For dinner, Venom Queen said. Pear Piper is taking care of dinner for tonight. I just wanted to make dessert. Do you know what sounds really good right now? Donuts. Or ice cream sundaes. Stun Gun said. Lava cakes sound amazing. We could do something foreign like brigadeiros. Mindmeld said. They're pretty easy to make and we can make a lot of them. What are brigadeiros? Eri asked, saying the word slowly. They're like chocolate balls covered in chocolate sprinkles. They're really easy and taste really, really good. It's actually a treat from Brazil. Mindmeld said. How about it? Sure. Stun Gun said. I'll go out and buy the ingredients. Ooh, I'll look up the recipe. Venom Queen volunteered. Me, Spy Master, and Eri can make it? Mindmeld nodded. Okay, Eri said. After a few minutes of cleaning and putting away dishes, Venom Queen showed them the recipe she had found. Isn't this American? Stungun asked. I thought you said it was from Brazil. Yeah, but Americans are known for putting a lot of sugar in their recipes. Venom Queen said. I want to make it really sweet. Mindmeld's eyebrows rose as he read the recipe. Okay then. Stungun, you might have to call for help from some of the heavy hitters. This is a lot of ingredients and we need to make, like, 250 of these. Wow, I didn't know it was possible to use that much sugar. Stungun said. Alrighty, I'll ask Forcebreak to help me out. He likes making sweets anyway. Time skipped to the future, when Stungun finished buying all the ingredients and Forcebreak came over to help. That is a lot of sugar, Forcebreak when scrolling through the recipe. They got out everything they would need and Spymaster helped tie a cute pink apron embroidered with cats on Eri. Okay, Eri, hop up here and you can help us out. Mindmeld said, setting Eri on the counter. Can you fill this with the cocoa powder and dump it in this bowl? I need you to do that 3 times. Okay, big brother. Eri chirped, grabbing the measuring cup and slowly filling it with the cocoa powder before dumping it in the mixing bowl. 1, 2, 3. Good job. Has Pentagram been teaching you how to count? Forcebreak asked, laying out nearly 10 sticks of butter. Yeah. She says I'm getting really far. Eri said. Hey, Forcebreak, how much sweetened condensed milk do I add? Stungun asked. Just that is way too much. Forcebreak shrieked. Stungun looked down at the multiple empty cans in front of him. Welp, he said, wincing. I guess we have to, like, 10-fold it? That's not 10-folding it, that's 50-folding it. Forcebreak said. Seriously, do you not know how to count? More for everyone. Venom Queen said, whisking together the vanilla and sugar. Wait, don't do that, Dash. It messes up the consistency. Forcebreak yelped. Mindmeld cackled out loud. This is a mess, he said. Obviously the Quintessence isn't known for their baking skills. Eri peered over the rim of the bowl that was bigger than her. Can I try it? She asked. Mindmeld nodded to affirm. She stuck her finger into the mixture and licked it up. Well? Mindmeld asked. It's really good, Eri said, stars in her eyes. She stuck her finger in it again. Really, really good. Whoa, slow down there, Mindmeld said. It'll be better when we finish, trust me. We need to wait for it to cool right now. Okay, Eri said sadly. Can I help you roll it in the sprinkles? Sure. We need a really big pan of sprinkles for this. Mindmeld bent over and pulled out a large cake pan as Forcebreak tried his best to fix whatever Stungun and Venom Queen had done, while also missing the fact that they were trying to mix the butter and milk without melting it. First, okay, Stungun bought a lot of sprinkles so we can add as many as we want. Sprinkles? Eri cheered, opening up one box and pouring it into the pan. They're so colorful. Let's add these ones and these ones and these ones, Mindmeld said, pouring in box after box. Finally, a towering heap of sprinkles laid on the pan, looking like a rainbow of small little dots. We still have some time before the batter is done, Mindmeld said, sparing a glance at Forcebreak as he slowly lost his sanity. What do you want to do now? Can I play with your scarf? Eri said excitedly. You mean my capture weapon? Sure, let's go play with my scarf, Mindmeld said. He helped Eri off the counter and followed her to the extra room, which the Quintessence had designated as their war room, where they would store all of their weapons and other support items. Made a beeline to where Mindmeld's scarf was hanging against the wall. Be careful with that. It took me forever to learn how to use it. And Pentagram had a hard time learning what it was made of, Mindmeld said, watching Eri pretend to fling it around and tie it around objects. How did you learn how to use it, big brother? Eri asked, trying to make it move without her touching it. A friend of the Quintessence uses one and I learned from watching him, Mindmeld said, taking the scarf from her. In the background, he could barely make out the sound of screaming coming from the kitchen. Here, let me show you. Mindmeld released the capture weapon, making it fly around the room before using it to hang upside down from the ceiling. That's so cool, Eri said. I want to meet your friend someday. Yeah, maybe, Einmeld said. Do you want to learn how to use weapons like this? Yeah. And then I can join you on your patrols and help save people. Eri sang, skipping around the room. How about this? Mindmeld said with a mischievous glint in his eye. I teach you how to fight and use weapons, and we keep it a secret from Jokester, okay? Really? Eri gasped. Mindmeld nodded, coming down from his position. Come here, I want to show you how to punch someone. They practiced for a long time until Forcebreak yelled from the kitchen. When they entered, it looked like a bomb had gone off. Flour? They weren't even supposed to use flour. How did that get there? Dusted the walls and counters, speckled with flecks of cocoa powder. Book was dripping from the ceiling, and somehow they had managed to smash the eggs so hard it broke the pan beneath it. Stun Gun and Venom Queen were standing with grins on their faces and absolutely covered in powdered sugar. They secretly bumped hands as Forcebreak leaned against the counter wearily. Batters ready for rolling, he gasped. Never call me to do something like this again. Mindmeld saluted him. You got it, Sugarman. Come on, Eri, it's time to roll the batter. They spent the next hour rolling the batter into mini balls and covering them with sprinkles. When they finished, they stashed everything they could into the fridge and took up nearly 5 shelves of storage. By the time they had finished cleaning the mess, Forcebreak had gone home. To get dressed and cleaned up, the Quintessence were just starting to arrive. Eri, Wait Force said, swinging the little girl around before setting her down on her hip. How are you, my adorable little sister? Eri giggled as Wait Force tapped her nose. Really good. We made some yummy treats. Really? Wait Force asked, her eyes widening in a fake surprise. Eri, it was supposed to be a surprise, Einmeld said. Come in, everyone. We're almost finished setting up. The Quintessence entered to see that the table was covered with fancy dishes and decorations. Stun Gun added the finishing touches by zapping electricity into the fake candles, making them glow. I want to sit next to Eri, Wait Force declared, moving aside the pink placemat labeled Venom Queen. Wait Force, I wanted to sit there, Venom Queen complained, coming in with forks and spoons. Wait Force grinned at her. This is war. There are no survivors. Geez, Wait Force, take a chill pill? Black Widow said, taking a spot next to his placement. We can all see Eri where she is anyway. But sitting there means she gets to help Eri with her food. Venom Queen whined. Finders keepers. Just sit in your dang seats already, Missile said, pounding his fist on the table. Where's Jokester? I thought he was supposed to be here. Sorry I'm late, guys, Izuku said, sliding into his seat. I was caught up in a few things. Older brother Jokester, Eri said. Hey Eri, how are you today? Izuku smiled at her. Mindmeld frowned as he noticed that one of Izuku's hands was shaking. Izuku hid it under the table and picked up his cup. Cheers for all of you making it today, he said. I'm glad you could all come. And thanks to Pear Piper for buying the meal, and Mindmeld, Venom Queen, Forcebreak, Stun Gun, and Eri for making dessert and getting it ready for us, he said, winking at Mindmeld. Who's ready to eat? Dinner was delicious, and they had a good time chatting and catching up. Throughout the meal, Mindmeld couldn't help but notice something was off about Jokester. His hand didn't stop shaking, and sometimes Jokester would pinch his arm, as if trying to wake up from a dream. Mindmeld even caught him grabbing onto his knee, trying to stop it from bouncing. Izuku smiled and waved it off, trying to avert Mindmeld's attention away. Thanks for that delicious dinner, Pear Piper. How about we move to the living room and have dessert? Everyone agreed, and soon enough they were sitting on the couches with the largest heap of chocolate balls they had ever seen piled on the coffee table. Kraken hesitantly picked one up, but Izuku popped one into his mouth immediately. Wow, that's really good, he remarked. You guys did a good job. You're welcome, Stun Gun said, earning an elbow to the ribs from Forcebreak. So, how have you guys been doing? I know it feels weird not going on patrols every week, Izuku said, laughing to himself. As long as we can spend time with Eri, Wait Force said. Eri was sitting on her lap and Wait Force was braiding her hair. What do you think Eraserhead's thinking right now? Impenetrable asked. I mean, he did try to bring us in a week ago. Let's hope he's going insane. Soundtrap snorted. I honestly don't think he really cares. I mean, we're just vigilantes he meets from time to time on the streets. He probably meets dozens of vigilantes like us. Flashkick said. The person in question was currently almost tearing out his hair, looking at the files on the Quintessence. He hadn't seen them in a week, and he was balancing between being worried and being ecstatic that they weren't on the streets anymore. His friendly detective was banging his head on the wall, trying to find out what the Quintessence were doing and where they would be striking next. Well, I was thinking about starting the patrols in another week or so. Is that okay? Izuku said, coughing into his hand. Oui. My sparkles has nearly gone down without anyone fearing my name. Brightbeam said, posing in front of everyone. I can't wait to start bombing those extras sky high. Missile sneered, cracking his hands. Izuku blinked. I guess that's a yes then. Can I come too? Can I come too? Eri asked, bouncing up and down on Wait For Slap. Yeah, Crystal Clear said. I want to take Eri on my patrol. It'll make them so much better. Please, jokester? Please? Eri pleaded, looking up at him with puppy dog eyes. Eri? Please? I see. Izuku sighed. He had been trapped long ago by her cuteness. I can't say no. If you go on a patrol, you have to promise me that you will take 2 members of the Quintessence with you. And Quintessence? He asked, surveying the group. Don't show her anything bad. Keep it kid-friendly? Yay! Eri and Crystal Clear cheered. Izuku smiled at their cheers, but that quickly turned into a frown when his hands started shaking again. He shoved it into his pocket and disguised the action by stealing another Brigadero. Mindmeld noticed this but didn't bring it up. Okay, everyone. We'll pick patrols back up, starting next week. Is there anything else I need to address? Does Eri have a birthday? Impenetrable asked suddenly. I mean, we celebrated Kraken's birthday not very long ago. What about Eri? And if Eri is going on a patrol with us, she needs a code name. Taylor added. Eri's birthday is in about 5 more months. Izuku said. She turns 5 then. And I think I should let Eri choose her own code name. That's a great idea. What do you want for your code name, Eri? Pentagram asked. Eri tilted her head. What's a code name? It's basically like another name, Caro. Rainstorm said. We call each other by our code names because we don't know each other's actual names. Another name, Eri said quietly. Does counter work? Counter? Yeah. The doctor would say it around me a lot. I don't know what it means, but I like it. He said my quirk countered other quirks. Izuku smiled. I think that's a perfect code name. Quintessence? Works for me. Black Widow said. Very good code name. Flashkick said. Eri smiled up at them, grateful she hadn't chosen something bad. Okay, Quintessence. I think that's everything. Izuku said. Who's ready to party? We can either turn on a movie or do some video games. Video games? Stungun said. We can do a movie after. Alrighty. Izuku said. The Quintessence gathered on the floor, taking turns with the controllers while cheering others on. Izuku sat in the back, making popcorn for whoever asked and dishing out servings of candy along with the Brigaderos. Mindmeld sat on the edge, secretly, watching Izuku with whatever he was doing. By the time everyone was done with the video games, Missile had surprisingly come out on top. They turned on a pre-quirk Disney movie. Pentagram created a giant nest of blankets for everyone to cuddle in as they watched the movie, but Izuku still decided to sit on the side. Eri fell asleep about an hour into the movie, so Izuku picked her up and gently carried her to her room. He laid her on the bed and tucked her in, smiling to himself in a sad way. He flicked the light switch off and was about to leave before a voice made him jump. Something is off. Mindmeld said, leaning against the wall next to Izuku. What happened? Izuku blew out a puff of air, laughing. Geez, Mindmeld, you scared me. What happened? Mindmeld repeated, still looking at Izuku. What do you mean? Izuku said lightly. He hadn't missed Mindmeld watching him the entire night. Your hand hasn't stopped shaking and you've been acting differently than you normally do. Mindmeld said matter-of-factly. Something must have happened. It's nothing, Mindmeld. Izuku said. Just tired. He turned to leave, noticing how mind meld didn't take his eyes off as Izuku walked down the hallway. He didn't rejoin the rest of the Quintessence, instead choosing to slip out the front door of the warehouse. Izuku took the long way home, enjoying the wind in his hair as he leaped from rooftop to rooftop. A few times he stumbled and almost tripped, barely keeping himself up. His body was jokester, but his mind was somewhere far away. Finally, he made it home, quietly opening the window and sliding in. His feet landed softly on the carpet, muffling his footsteps as he walked past his bedroom and into the living room. There, in the middle of the room, was a man who had been tied up and gagged. His face had a small cut from his eye to his mouth, and his skin was incredibly pale. The man's head lolled to the side and his eyes were closed, the only sign of life from his chest moving up and down. Izuku slowed his march, keeping his eyes trained on the man. He carefully walked forward, pulling the small knife from his sheath and using it to cut off the gag. The man slowly opened his eyes as Izuku took a few steps back and crouched down, still staring at the man. The man's eyes widened, not that it would do any good as the apartment was pitch black. Izuku's mask had built-in night vision, making it unnecessary to turn on any lights. Izuku regarded the man for a minute, watching him wildly twist his head around, looking for any source of light. "Who are you?" Izuku asked darkly, the voice changer activating. The man jumped a foot, his breath quickening and his nostrils flaring. "My name is Bibato. Bato Teneniki," the man said desperately. "I'm not lying, I swear. I'm sorry for trying to rob you." Izuku had to stifle a laugh. "It's not the robbing part you're here for. How did you do it?" Do what?" Izuku held up his hand, knowing the man couldn't see it. His hand started shaking again, more violently than normal. Izuku sighed and pressed his hand down again. "Your quirk. And the other one?" "The other one?" Tanaki stuttered. "The other quirk. I know you have two." I don't know. I swear, I've only ever had one quirk. It's not possible to have more than one. My quirk is tremor. I can make things shake for a very long time like an earthquake. I'm sorry I used it on you." Tanaki stuttered. "I don't know of any other quirk." "Then how did you control the water around us?" Izuku said coolly, remembering how Tanaki had shot stream and stream of water after him before tagging him with the tremor quirk. Izuku knocked him out quickly after that, but had to take a good 5-minute break before he was able to move again. I don't remember, I promise. I was just trying to get money for food. I didn't have anything else I could do. A regular thief just trying to survive. I only just escaped the doctor." Izuku frowned at this. "The doctor? What are you talking about?" Izuku asked. "What doctor?" "I don't know his name, I swear. I only know him as the doctor. He did some horrible things to me and the others. That might be where I got my other quirk." Izuku's blood ran cold. Human experimentation? Already? He knew about Chisaki, but this? Wasn't it supposed to be over? As an even bigger thing, this doctor may or may not have the power to give people quirks. That in itself was a danger. Izuku could only imagine a world where criminals had multiple quirks. What things? I don't know. Experiments? Maybe? We were asleep most of the time. I managed to use tremor and got out, grabbing a few files but nothing else. I just needed money for food." Izuku sighed internally. He was starting to get a headache from all of this. But this wasn't the sort of problem he would dump on the Quintessence. They had already dealt with something like this, might as well give them a break. "Fine then," Izuku muttered. He slipped the pin from his sleeve, he was pretty close to naming it because it was basically his best friend, and pricked Tanaki on the arm. Almost immediately, Tanaki was out cold. Izuku picked Tanaki up, walking him back outside. He had a little trouble getting the man through the window, but after that it was clear sailing all the way to the empty warehouse the Quintessence had had their meetings. He set Tanaki down and dusted off his hands. "Let's see," Izuku said to himself, grabbing Tanaki's jacket and looking through it. Empty wallet, ID card, pocket knife and dash. Izuku pulled a small envelope from one of the pockets, reading the words on the back. Subject 0014, Bato Tanaki. Subject 0015, Mirai Renko. Subject 0016, Chentohansher. Interesting, these must be the files he was talking about. Izuku carefully opened the envelope, pulling out the first paper. On it was a detailed examination of Mirai Ranko, a girl about 20 years old by the picture. Izuku frowned, flipping the paper over. Product? He asked. Izuku set the paper down, reading over the explanation. Subject 0015. Quirk, fire fingers. Allow her to light her fingers on fire without burning herself. Fire can be put out with water. Interesting but kind of weak. 0008 hours. Serum Z was used on subject 0015. Instructions to wait for approximate 400 minutes before testing. I wonder what Serum Z is. Izuku scanned through the rest of the documents, coming across the same thing over and over again. Someone with a particularly weak quirk, Tanaki's was by far the strongest, was injected with Serum Z and told to wait for a long time before finding out what it actually did. Izuku looked over one of the last documents, his eyes growing wide. Additional quirk, he whispered. Subject 0014 has introduced a new quirk after 3 days of Serum Z, allows him to control attached water molecules and guide them through carbon dioxide. Testing to see if quirk is compatible with genes. If it is, testing to see how many quirks we can add. Izuku fell back, his mind a whirlwind. Adding quirks to someone using a serum? That was impossible. No one could do that. His breathing started getting faster and faster. Couldn't be. Was someone experimenting on random people to see if they could grow quirks? What sort of biotechnology was this? A clinking sound drew his attention back to the envelope. Curious, he opened it up to see a small wrapped paper tucked into the corner. He unwrapped it and a small glass vial dropped into his hand, Serum Z in small lettering across the glass. Izuku held it up to the light. The liquid inside was a murky white color with swirls of gold inside. This was Serum Z, a serum that could possibly give people quirks? It looked too pretty to be that deadly, but looks can be misleading. Izuku gathered up the files again, shoving them into the envelope. He said a quick thank you to the unconscious Tanaki for getting him the files before running back home. Something was going on here, and he was going to fix it. It had been 2 months since the Quintessence had rescued Eri, and Eraserhead was almost at his limit. He had called in nearly every favor he could to see where they might have gone, but the trail was cold. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Eraserhead was currently sitting at his table, which was covered in papers and files. He skimmed through different articles mentioning the Quintessence before deeming them useless and tossing them to the side. Wow, show. Present, Mike said, coming up behind his shoulder. Could you get any messier? Could you get any more annoying? Eraserhead grumbled, picking up 2 articles and comparing their ideas on the Quintessence. Yep, Present Mike said. We are roommates after all. They've been missing for 2 months. Who takes out a Yakuza and disappears for 2 months? Eraserhead asked, setting the articles down and looking up for the first time in 3 hours. His eyes were more red than normal and he had to blink a few times to get used to the light. People with other things on their hands than patrols. Present Mike said gently. Come on, show. You need to get outside and enjoy the sun. It'll be good for you. They could be dead, Zashi. What if they are? What if one of the mafias got fed up by them and killed them all? What if they were captured? The underground is a scary place. Eraserhead said. They could be kids. They know how to fend for themselves. Present Mike said. You need to stop worrying about them and start worrying about yourself. Come with me and go shopping, you need to get out more. No thanks. Eraserhead said, shuffling through the papers. You can go out by yourself? Present Mike sighed, picking up the keys and putting on his coat. I'll be back in a few. Make sure you get something to eat. Yeah. Present Mike walked outside, debating if he should drive before deciding against it. He walked down the street, saying hello to his neighbors before ending up at an outside market. Present Mike, in his civilian costume of course, wandered the stalls, picking up random fruits and checking them before paying for them and putting them in his bag. While he stopped at one store that sold little cat stuffed animals, he heard a peculiar group of people approaching. No, she likes green, remember? Don't get her the pink, a first voice said. But the pink almost matches her eyes, said a second voice, closer to present Mike. The gray matches her hair, should we get this one for her? A third one said excitedly. Guys, she really doesn't need this much jewelry. She'll probably never wear it. A fourth voice said, sounding incredibly bored. But the aesthetic. The second voice said again. She can just hang it up in her room if she doesn't wear it. And it'll look so cute on her. Ah to the nah to the no no no. The first one said, that pink doesn't match any of the other colors. Present Mike paid for a black cat stuffed animal, discreetly looking over his shoulder at the voices. A group of 4 people, all dressed in black and wearing full face masks, were crowded around a jewelry stand selling strings of beads and jewels. He thanked the vendor before moving on to the closest stand to the group, looking at an interesting array of wooden statues, but really just listening in on their conversation. Black clothes and masks stood out in public places like this. Who were they and what were they thinking? You guys, we have to get this. She'll love it, the pink masked person said, holding up a strand of beads with a sparkly green and blue pattern. It's so cute, another said, with a foggy white mask. But she said she didn't want anything that would make her stand out, remember. It's too sparkly and she has her first patrol tonight. If we can't decide, why don't we buy them all and have her choose? Another said, this one with a dark red mask. I mean, the boss did give us a lot of money, the last one said, with a royal purple mask. I say we just go for it. Yay, the pink masked person said. Excuse me, vendor person? Yes, we would like to buy all of these. All of them? The vendor stuttered. Yep. Don't worry, we can pay. Present Mike set down one of the statues he was holding and picked up another, thoughts racing through his head. These weren't regular people, he could tell. The descriptions Show had told him flashed through his mind. Were these guys the Quintessence? Thank you, vendor guy, the foggy white mask said. The group started walking away, 3 bags hanging from their arms and filled to the brim with the jewelry. Present Mike hastily set down the statue and started following them from a distance. The group didn't get far before they were stopped by another group of teenage boys. Excuse me, are you the Quintessence? The leader asked. The masked group looked at each other before simultaneously nodding. Oh, it really is you. I don't think you remember, but you saved me a while back from a criminal. I never got to repay you, the leader said. Can I take a picture with you? Sure, white masked person said. The 2 groups posed for a selfie before the leader started shaking their hands. Is there any way I can repay you? He asked gratefully. Just stay safe. That's all we can ask, the pink masked person said cheerfully. Can you at least tell me your names? I'm Venom Queen, the pink masked person said. You can call me Pentagram, the red masked person said. Crystal clear, the white masked person said. The purple masked person nodded their head. Soundtrap? Thank you. I'm in your debt, the leader said. The 4 members of the Quintessence, it had to be the Quintessence, Present Mike was sure of it, nodded their heads. Stay safe, Crystal Clear said. And remember, you can be a hero too. The Quintessence exited the market, quietly giggling to themselves. Present Mike still followed from the distance, trying to get as many photos as he could. Pentagram pulled a phone out of their pocket and placed it to their ear. Hi, jokester. What's up? No, we're on our way right now. Just getting some presents for Air Counter. Yes, we know that it's her first patrol tonight. Do you know who's going with her? Meld, Pear Piper, and Flashkick? No, I think that's a good idea. She'll definitely be safe with them. Meld is basically her real older brother. Alright, we'll meet back at base in 5 minutes. See ya then. Pentagram pocketed the phone, nodding to their companions. They turned into an empty alleyway, and when Present Mike reached it, they were gone. I have to tell Show, Present Mike whispered. He hurried home as quickly as he could and burst through the door. Show, guess what? Zashi, what did I tell you about barging in? Eraserhead said tiredly. I'm in the kitchen still. Present Mike entered the room to see an even messier mess cluttering the table. What is it? Eraserhead asked. Well, first I bought you this adorable stuffed cat, Present Mike said, taking out the black stuffed animal he had bought. Eraserhead gave him a look. You barged in to tell me that? No, I barged in to tell you I saw the Quintessence just barely. Now isn't the time for your jokes, you saw who? Eraserhead yelped, immediately standing up. The Quintessence? Present Mike said slyly. What did they do? Where did you see them? Who did you see? Eraserhead asked, rapid-firing questions directed at Present Mike. Present Mike grinned evilly. Calm down, Chef. I did hear a few snippets of their conversation. And I'll tell you, if what? Eraserhead practically screamed. Take a shower, have some dinner, and help me clean up the kitchen, Present Mike said. Eraserhead's jaw dropped. What? You heard me. You haven't taken a shower in forever, you need to actually eat in order to live, and the kitchen is a mess. Huh? Joke's on you. I already know the Quintessence is alive, so I don't need to know what they said. Eraserhead said triumphantly. I may or may not have heard what they might be doing tonight, Present Mike whistled, looking at the ceiling. I'll be down in 10 minutes. Eraserhead said, already running up the stairs. Present Mike heard the bathroom door close and grinned. It felt nice to have some power. 30 minutes later, the kitchen was spotless and Eraserhead had eaten all of his, relatively healthy, dinner. Alright, tell me. Eraserhead said, his phone out on the table and in a video call with Tsukachi. Okay, so I met. Pentagram, diamond clear? Crystal clear. Eraserhead immediately filled in. Yeah, crystal clear. Soundtrap and Poison Queen. Venom Queen. Oh yeah, her. Present Mike said, lifting his eyebrows at Eraserhead. They were at the outside market while I was shopping. They stayed at one stand the entire time, a jewelry stand. Jewelry? Tsukachi asked, his eyes narrowed. The first time we hear from them in 2 months and they're looking at jewelry? Yeah, I know. Weird. Anyway, they buy the entire stand dash? The entire stand? Well, all the jewelry. They kept saying it was for her, though I don't know who she is. They buy the stand, start walking out, and are stopped by this group of boys. A mafia group? Someone who is an enemy. No show. Just a group of random boys they apparently saved a while ago. Got a selfie, told me their names, kept going. Then Pentagram got a call from this person named Jokester. Tsukachi and Eraserhead exchanged looks, which didn't go unnoticed. What's wrong? Present Mike asked. Jokester is the leader of the Quintessence? Tsukachi explained. We've only seen him twice in the 2 years Quintessence has been out. Well, they kept talking about her, and said something about it was her first patrol. Tonight. Which means the Quintessence is going on a patrol tonight. Then they left. Present Mike summed up. Tonight. Patrol. Got it? Eraserhead said. I'll find them soon. Zashi, I'm going out tonight? Of course you are. And I'm coming too. Present Mike said. You're not an underground hero, Zashi. So? Come on show, I found all this out. You have to let me come. I want to meet the little listeners. There's a chance they're initiating a new member of the group, Zashi. It could be dangerous. Show they act like kids. I'm coming. Whatever you do, just keep me filled in. Tsukachi said. I have to add this to their file. He ended the call. Eraserhead sighed. Fine, Zashi, you can come. But don't wear your regular outfit, you'll stand out too much. Yes, sir. Present Mike said excitedly. 2 hours later, they were ready. It takes a while to get Present Mike's hair perfect, give him a break. First they traveled by rooftops. Present Mike nearly slipped and fell, and it took nearly an hour and a half to find the Quintessence. Eraserhead landed lightly on top of a building, Present Mike close behind. The Quintessence was gathered on one side, as if watching a spectacle happening on the floor. One of them immediately turned around when the duo landed. Eraserhead, they said, causing the other members to turn as well. Soundtrap? Eraserhead said. Soundtrap snorted and rolled her eyes. Hey, Razor, who's your buddy? The person in the bright yellow mask asked. Present Mike shot them with finger guns. Yo yo yo, what's up little listeners? This is Present Mike here. Cool, the yellow-masked person said, shooting finger guns back. I'm Stun Gun. Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Crystal Clear, the white-masked vigilante said. Lord of the Darkness, Blackmare. Blackmare introduced himself. What's up, Eraserhead? It's been a while. Venom Queen said. I'm not the one who went MIA. Eraserhead retorted. Why did you come back out now? Where have you been? Initiation. Black Widow said, saying each syllable with a nod of his head. Black Widow, why did you tell him? Taylor hissed. I thought we were keeping her on the down low. Black Widow jolted. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, he whispered back. Hey, Eraserhead, you need to leave. Like now. Soundtrap said. Soundtrap, don't be so rude. Crystal Clear said, horrified. Why not? He arrested me. I can be as rude as I want. Soundtrap said. But he needs to leave. How did he even find us? I thought this patrol was supposed to be secret. Eraserhead looked over the group. You're missing members. Mind Meld isn't stalking me, so where is he? Not here, a voice said from behind them. Eraserhead whirled around to see Jokester standing on the edge of the roof. Since when had he gotten there? I'm sorry, Eraserhead, but you need to leave. As well as you, Present Mike. Jokester. Eraserhead said. Present Mike looked from Eraserhead to Jokester. Wait, this is the Jokester? The one you told me about? The one and only. Jokester said. It's a pleasure to meet you, voice hero. Present Mike. Cool, you know who I am? Present Mike said. Eraserhead could tell Jokester smiled underneath the mask. I know a lot about you, but this is the first time we've actually met. I'm sorry to cut this short, but you have to go. Kraken, what's the update? Kraken stepped forward, his arms looking like a pair of black wings covered in cloth. Mind Meld is helping her right now, but most of the others are down. Good. Jokester said, nodding. I'll tell Pearpiper and Flashkick to start heading back soon. Black Mare, please escort our guests away. Why are you even here in the first place? You've been missing for 2 months, Jokester. I was getting worried, Eraserhead said. Jokester paused. Cared? Of course I cared, Eraserhead said, obviously miffed. I'm here to keep you in check, not to let you go. Interesting, Jokester murmured. I thought, never mind. You still need to go. Eraserhead was about to open his mouth to respond when a small voice yelled from the ground. Look, I finished, the voice said. Eraserhead froze. It didn't sound as if they were using voice changers like the rest of the group, and the voice sounded young. Very young. Jokester walked to the edge of the roof. Good job, Counter. We'll come down to you, the leader turned around. Come on, Quintessence. I'll take care of the heroes. Counter. Venom Queen cheered, jumping off the roof. Black Widow sighed and barely managed to catch her before following. The rest of the Quintessence jumped off as well. Jokester slid into battle stance. This is the last time, Eraserhead. You need to leave for both of our safeties. Present Mike stepped in front of Eraserhead. I don't think so. Sho was really ready to come here today. He's not leaving. I'm not asking, Jokester said darkly, before striking. Before Present Mike could even blink, Jokester had rushed forward, grabbing Eraserhead's capture weapon just as it was thrown. He reflected the scarf and toppled Eraserhead with the quickest swipe of the feet Present Mike had ever seen. His eyes could barely widen before Jokester grabbed his arm, threw him quickly over the shoulder and slammed the voice hero into the ground. Ow! Present Mike groaned, trying to roll onto his side. What the heck, little listener? You need to leave, Jokester said before. He glanced to the side and quietly hissed to himself. She's coming. Crap. Never before had Eraserhead heard a vigilante say the word crap. Jokester knelt down next to him, and Eraserhead felt a small prick on his neck. His vision almost immediately started turning black as the vigilante did the same to Present Mike. Older brother Jokester, Eraserhead heard from the side. It was the same young voice he had heard before. Just before succumbing to the darkness, Eraserhead heard one final sentence. Hi, Counter, you did so well fighting those criminals. I think you're ready to join the Quintessence, Jokester said, and Eraserhead slipped under. Izuku glanced at the 2 unconscious heroes. It had been too close. They had almost found out about Eri. Older brother Jokester, did you see how good I did? Eri asked excitedly, bouncing up to him. Izuku laughed and knelt down, ruffling her hair and fixing the green eye mask on her face. You did so good, Counter. You've gotten a lot stronger. Eri beamed, giving him a hug before giving hugs to everyone else. I did it. I saved people. Izuku sidled up next to Mindmeld. How much did you help? He asked lowly. Not much. Mindmeld whispered. Brainwashed 2 people to keep them still. She took care of the rest. Don't think I didn't notice the extra fighting lessons you've been giving her. Izuku responded. Mindmeld blushed under his mask. But thanks. It'll help defend her in the future. You really think people will still be after her? Jokester watched Eri get swung in the air by Impenetrable. People will always be after her. Her quirk is just too powerful. I'm doing my best to make sure no information is spread about her, but one day it might not work. We just need to be prepared. He nudged the unconscious heroes with his foot. And we need to leave before these guys wake up. Hey guys, treats back at the house. Let's get a move on and celebrate, Mindmeld said, raising his voice. Yay! Eri cheered, sitting on top of Pearpiper's shoulders. The group headed away from the 2 unconscious pro-heroes, making sure that no one else was able to follow them. When they made it back to the warehouse, the first thing they did was bring out the enormous cake they had hid. Congratulations, Counter, Wait Force said. You've joined the Quintessence? Eri looked almost reverently at the green cake with the lit candles illuminating the dark room. I can save people now? Eri asked quietly. I can join you? Of course, little Eri. Soundtrap said, a lot nicer than when she had talked to Eraserhead. Of course. Izuku cleared his throat. I would like you all to be witnesses here. Not only Eri's initiation, but also a name change. Name change? Eri asked, opening her eyes wide. Name change. Izuku nodded. He kneeled down to her, looking into her vermilion eyes. Do you want a new name? Eri didn't answer, just nodded as tears welled up in her eyes. Yes, she whispered. I don't want his name anymore. Don't worry. Izuku soothed, stroking her hair. You won't have his name anymore. What do you want your name to be? Eri slightly shook her head. I don't know, she whispered softly. But something to do with the Quintessence. With my family. Izuku's heart skipped a beat when she said that, and he had to stop himself from hugging her right there. I think that's a wonderful idea. I was thinking, how would you like to be Eri Saiza? Seizi? Eri asked. It means constellations. Quintessence is a dark energy up in space, but constellations are the lights that shine through it, Izuku said, noticing how some of the Quintessence were nodding their heads. Eri Saiza, Eri said, trying out her new name. Yeah. I like it. Eri Saiza it is. Izuku said, standing up. I would like for all of you to be witnesses today of Eri's name change and initiation. From now on, Eri is a full member of the Quintessence. Izuku smiled down at Eri. Welcome to the family, Eri Saiza. It has been 2 years since they saved Eri from Chisaki. During that time, she had grown to be a well-known member of the Quintessence, the young but talented Counter. Even though she was the only one without a full face mask and voice changer, the public had yet to figure out who she really was. Izuku doubted they would ever find out. The Quintessence was currently on patrol, Eri with them, so Izuku and Mindmeld were left at the warehouse alone. Izuku quietly bounced his knee up and down, fiddling with the communication device in front of him. Sue, the school year is almost over. Mindmeld said nonchalantly. Izuku said, still playing with the device. Like he could forget. He had been swamped with studies and tests for the past 2 weeks, not to mention he had no idea where he was going to go for high school. Entrance exams for high school are coming up. Mindmeld continued. Yep. Izuku said, finally looking up. Let me guess, you want to make it to UA? Mindmeld blushed under his mask. Is it that easy to tell? You've been called a villain your entire life, Mindmeld. Izuku said, almost slipping and saying his real name. I think it would be expected for you to want to get into the top hero school. And? Izuku shrugged. If you need help, I got you. I can modify your training schedule to help with getting into the school, not to mention your studies in case you need help with the actual exam. Really? Mindmeld said, sitting up. Sure. I mean, I did make it a rule that everyone in the Quintessence had to keep their grades up. Patrolling isn't a very good career. Izuku said. If you need help with studying sessions, just text. And you're plenty strong, so the physical part of the exam should be breezy, no matter what it is. MindMeld smiled gratefully. Thanks, jokester. Izuku nodded back at him, returning to the communication device. Of course MindMeld wanted to get into UA. To prove that just because of his quirk, he wasn't a villain. To prove he could still save people without doing it against the law. To prove that he wasn't useless. Of course he wasn't useless, Izuku reminded himself. Anyone can do anything as long as they put their mind up to it. Even a quirkless nobody. They sat in silence for another while, Izuku fiddling with his toy and MindMeld brushing his hand along his capture weapon. Izuku remembered when MindMeld had first seen Eraserhead, and had nearly died from excitement just by being around the pro hero. MindMeld had stalked him for months afterward, trying to figure out his secrets. After he was confident, he had asked Pentagram to make him his own capture weapon so he could be just like Eraserhead. Izuku slightly smiled, his mind caught up in the wonderful moments he had had with the Quintessence. Taylor and Kraken begging him for help with their mutation quirks. Giving Crystal Clear a mirror specially made for her birthday that allowed her to actually see herself. One night, the Quintessence had even built an entire nest in a warehouse and filled it to the brim with pillows and blankets. They had a really fun time then, Izuku remembered. Jokester? MindMeld asked. Izuku snapped to attention. Yes? The Quintessence will be returning soon. Have you decided who's going to stay with Eri for today? Izuku frowned at his communication device, which was half open and covered in wires and bolts. That's what this was for, he said, pushing wires back inside. I'll leave missile and force break for tonight. I just need to fix this up so I can start installing devices around the warehouse. MindMeld looked at him curiously. Why are you installing communication pieces around here? Izuku sighed. I'm a little disappointed that we haven't added more security to the warehouse. It's now the official meeting place for the Quintessence and Aries home. I'm just worried in case something would happen. Jokester, you've installed cameras in almost every corner, an alarm system that works with a touch of hair, a fingerprint scanner to the weapon room, and like 300 hidden weapons and speakers in case someone were to break in. You really don't think that's enough? MindMeld said flatly. Well, yes but no. There are some quirks that could easily pass through my security. I'm just making it something not even the number one could get past. Izuku said. Not to mention the secret room he had underneath that no one knew about. MindMeld whistled. Oh well, you do you. I'm gonna head home, I've got a test for school tomorrow. I'll text when I would like some studying sessions, sounds okay? Izuku nodded, and MindMeld left just as the rest of the Quintessence entered. We're back, Eri said, flopping on the couch. How did the patrol go? Eri's eyes sparkled. I saved a lot of people. And then Big Brother Flashkick showed up and taught me how to roll underneath people's legs to make a quick escape. Izuku laughed. That's really great, Eri. Whoosh, I'm tired. Weight Force complained, sitting down next to Eri and pulling her close. I think I'm ready to go to bed. What time is it? Izuku checked his watch. Just before 11:30. Oh crap, that's my cue to leave. Weight Force said. I can't push reality away forever. Goodbye, my beautiful, amazingly awesome little sister. Weight Force booped Eri on the nose and left, followed by most of the Quintessence. Missile, Force Break, you're staying with Eri today? Izuku called out. Missile almost started muttering something under his breath, before Eri ran up to him and tugged on the black shirt he was wearing. Yay yay yay. Eri said happily. I wanted Big Brother Missile to show me how to move in the air. But Eri, Missile said, trying his darndest to keep his voice soft. Eri looked up at him with puppy dog eyes. Pleasies, she asked. You promised to teach me. It's almost midnight. Missile tried. But you promised. Missile sighed, defeated. All right then, you little bugger. Come on, I'll show you real quick. But I got things happening too, you know. Yay, Eri said, following Missile out the back. Guess I'm on cleanup duty. Force Break said. I'll see you later, jokester. Izuku smiled. I'll see you later as well, Force Break. Yes, they were happy. Izuku hoped that this would last forever. Black Widow. Hey, jokester. Can I ask you something? Jokester. Go ahead. Black Widow. The school year is ending soon. And entrance exams are coming up for high school. I wanted to make it into UA. Jokester. You got it. Black Widow. Seriously? Jokester. I expected this from the beginning of the school year. Def.big. If you use that link, I've already made a training schedule for you. You're going to have to take time away from patrols in order to practice, though. Black Widow. Thanks, Jokester. Knew I could count on you. Jokester. I'm looking forward to seeing you at UA. Asterisk. Izuku leaned back in his chair, tapping his chin. Funny, that had been the 9th def he had to make for the Quintessence. Izuku grinned to himself, laughing on the inside. It was basically guaranteed that the Quintessence, everyone had texted him about going to UA, he was still working on some of their defs, would make it to UA, and Izuku couldn't wait to see their faces when they realized who each other were. His watch rang with an alarm, and Izuku looked at it, surprised. 6 in the morning already? How did it get so late? Or early, whatever. Izuku jumped out of his chair, throwing books and notebooks into his little yellow backpack. He pulled on his school uniform as quickly as he could and rushed to the kitchen, grabbing a granola bar and a small breakfast smoothie. He sucked into the straw as he tugged his bright red tennis shoes on, checking his hair in the hallway mirror before running out the door. He tried to rub the sleep out of his eyes as he walked down the sidewalk toward school. Another all-nighter under his belt, and he hadn't even realized. After a short walk, Izuku stepped in front of the entrance gates to Aldra Middle School. He hurried into his classroom and took his seat in the back of the class, out of the way of prying eyes. He was the first one there, like always, so he took out one of his notebooks. The notebook had previously been named Hero Analysis for the Future, until he decided that the words were a little smudged and needed to redraw them. The simple observations was a lot easier to write and left more space for other things. He opened to the last page, where a half-completed sketch and analysis of Kamui Woods showed up. He calculated how many more pages he would need for the wooden hero before flipping closer to the back and titling the page Mount Lady. Izuku pulled out his phone and opened up the video of the hero's debut this morning. It had been incredibly close to where he had walked to school, but Izuku liked taking shortcuts, so he had missed the fight, much to his dismay. Before 2 minutes were into the video, he already had half a page of notes on the new pro hero. Everyone had already gotten into class and the teacher was just starting his lesson. Izuku put his stuff away but still only half paid attention. Technically, he had already finished 2 years into high school, but no one needed to know that. School dragged on, but it was finally the end of the day. The teacher walked to the front of the room, a stack of papers in his hands. He cleared his throat. I know that I should give you these high school recommendations, he said. But it doesn't matter, since you all want to go to UA. The teacher threw the pages into the air as the classmates cheered and showed off their quirks. Izuku had to stop himself from rolling his eyes. Hey teach, Bakugo said loudly. Don't dump me in on with the rest of these extras. I'm making it to class 1A unlike all of you losers. The class booed, but what could they do? Bakugo was basically the apex predator. Izuku made a mental note to ask Missile to tone down on the whole extras thing. That reminds me, Midoriya, you wanted to get into 1A as well, correct? The teacher said, flustered by the sudden interruption. Izuku internally sighed. Yes, he had said that. Like 4 years ago. You seriously had to bring it back up? Teach? The quirkless Bakugo shouted. He wasn't even shushed by the teacher. A Deku like you will never make it into nerd. Izuku winced as the rest of the class laughed along with him. Well, technically they abolished that rule a few years ago. Izuku defended. And it was never proven that you need a quirk to get in. Bitch, you couldn't do anything. Bakugo said. Izuku bit his tongue, adding about 3 more mental notes on Missile. The bell rang and everyone filed out of the class. Izuku stood up and sighed, glad to finally be alone. He started to put his notebooks back into his backpack when someone grabbed it from his hand. Observations, huh? What happened to the lame hero analysis for the future? Bakugo snorted, holding Izuku's notebook high above his head. Izuku gritted his teeth. Please give me back my book, Kakin. Only if you promise not to get into UA. Heck, only if you promise to not even try. Bakugo said, and Izuku saw steam rise from his notebook. Oh crap, that was bad. He hadn't added those analyses to his computer yet. With the slightest flip of his hand, Bakugo threw the notebook out the open window. Izuku yelped in fear and moved forward, as if to catch it. Word of advice? Bakugo asked, already leaving the room. Take a swan dive off the roof of the building and pray for a quirk in your next life. You'll never amount to anything, you're just a weak, quirkless, Deku. Nearly 5 tick marks, Izuku thought. 5 tick marks against missile. Oh, he would be destroyed later. But Izuku had other things to worry about. He hurried down the stairs and ran around to the back of the school, where his notebook was surrounded by little koi fish. That's not fish food, idiots, he said darkly, picking up his notebook and shaking off the algae. It's information. Whoever controls the information controls the war, Izuku reminded himself. Izuku felt tears burn his eyes, and for a second he was startled. He hadn't been hurt by any of Bakugo's words before. The suicide baiting must have something to do with that. Izuku knew that Bakugo sometimes had a slip of the tongue. More lessons with missile would be added, of course. Bakugo would never make it to be a hero with that attitude. Izuku debated taking another shortcut to his house, but decided against it. It would be nice to enjoy the clear weather and nice temperature. He laughed slightly to himself, mainly as a way to cheer himself up. As he walked underneath a road tunnel, he stepped down on a manhole cover that shaked violently and tried to buck him off. Izuku said, taking a step back and crouching down. Interesting. Is there something underneath? He tapped on the manhole cover again, and it nearly jumped off. Izuku fell backwards, staring at the cover. Reasons ran through his head, coming to a stop at the most logical one. There was someone or something underneath it, and he needed to leave. Izuku stumbled to his feet, running as quickly as he could away from the cover. Behind him, he heard it fly off, and the sound of rushing water filled Izuku's ears. He barely had time to react before something was pulling him off his feet and into the air. A medium-sized skin suit. Someone said, and suddenly a green sludge was shoved onto Izuku's face. He twisted and rolled away, coming to a stop and looking up. A mass of green sludge took up the extent of the road tunnel, and Izuku didn't feel like laughing anymore. It moved and rippled like water, but it was defying physics by spreading and moving outside of a container. 2 sickly yellow eyes popped out of the liquid, fixing on Izuku. I can't let him catch me, the liquid said, and Izuku nervously shuffled back a few paces. It was obviously just a mugger, a low-time criminal, but the liquid quirk would be hard to fight. You'll be the perfect skin suit. Izuku couldn't scream, couldn't speak as the liquid shot towards him faster than any bullet he had seen. It wrapped around his body and forced its way into his mouth and nose. Izuku's eyes widened as he realized that he was drowning. He couldn't breathe. Izuku pulled at the sludge around him as much as he could. He needed air. No, he couldn't die. What about Eri? What about the Quintessence? He had to survive. Think, he couldn't survive without air. His backpack. He always kept at least 2 weapons in the hidden pocket he had sewed into his backpack. As long as he could get to his backpack, then what would he do? Stab the eyes with the small pocket knife he has? Shoot the liquid with his sedative dart? He couldn't breathe, he needed air, he needed air, he needed air. Izuku's hands started to feel limp, but he couldn't stop pulling at the liquid around him. He needed to get out. He couldn't lose, not now. It's no use, the liquid crooned. I just need your body for right now. Izuku felt his hands drop and his eyelids started to close. The chest was on fire, like a small match was burning in his lungs. He tried to kick his feet, but they felt like lead. Just as he started to black out, something happened. Texas smash. Someone yelled, and suddenly Izuku was flying through the air. No, falling was a better word. He slightly opened his eyes, and saw flecks of liquid raining down in the sky. It looked really pretty, he thought to himself. His head turned, and he saw the blurry form of someone standing there, with 2 little yellow blobs on top of their head. Izuku fainted. He woke up to someone slapping his cheek quickly. Ah, good, you're awake, a deep voice said. Izuku tried to swat the stranger's hand away, but it was harder than a brick wall. Why was it so hard? Izuku groaned and sat up, feeling the smooth sidewalk cement under his hand. So, he wasn't under the road tunnel anymore. He rubbed his eyes and looked at the person who had been slapping him with a glare. All Might was standing over him. He was glaring at All Might. Izuku yelped in surprise and scooted back. The number 1 hero. All Might, sir. Izuku stuttered. I can't believe it's you. Inside, he mentally cringed. Stop stuttering. He really needed to get rid of his stuttering problem. Well, you are all right now, All Might said. I have captured the villain. He showed off the green sludge stuffed into 2 soda bottles. See, can I get your autograph? I have some paper around here, Izuku said, spotting his notebook off to the side. He opened it up and saw that All Might had already signed his notebook. With his name. Thank you, sir. Izuku stood, bowing as low as he could. I'll treasure it forever. Of course, my boy. I need to be off, All Might said, already stretching his legs. Izuku froze. Wait, what? But he had so many questions. And he just met All Might. He couldn't just leave. The life of a hero is always busy, All Might said, saluting him. Izuku didn't know what he was doing until his legs were flapping in the air, and he was hanging on to the number 1 hero's legs as they flew through the air. What, the young man, you need to let go, All Might said. I can't. Izuku yelled over the wind. If I let go, I'll die. Good point, All Might remarked. They landed on the roof of a building, and Izuku gladly collapsed to the floor. He was completely drained from the terrifying but definitely new experience. He made a mental note to ask Wait Force for some extra flight training. He looked up, a dizzy look on his face, and noticed that All Might was standing in a pile of smoke. He opened his mouth to say something. That is, until All Might suddenly shrunk and disappeared, leaving a man that looked depressingly like a skeleton. Izuku scrambled, not even able to make comprehensible words coming out of his mouth. He opened and closed it multiple times like a fish. This was All Might? This was the symbol of peace. All Might coughed into his hand, and a stream of blood dripped down. Izuku yelped in fear as the pro-hero calmly wiped it away with a handkerchief. So, you see who I really am, All Might said, turning to look at Izuku. He stopped mid-sentence, raising his eyebrows. Izuku had abruptly turned around and curled into a little ball, hands over his ears. Small sounds were coming from the boy on the ground, but All Might couldn't tell if it was muttering real words or gibberish. Excuse me? All Might asked. Izuku shook his head hard, still mumbling. Obviously the quirk has some sort of strength boost, All Might heard. Possible extra adjustment. Multifaceted quirk? It seems to have some sort of avatar made when using the quirk. Not an illusion, he felt real when I was hanging on, couldn't be someone with a disguise quirk? Ahem. Excuse me? All Might said again, lightly tapping the boy's shoulder. Are you okay? Izuku looked up at him. You're still All Might, right? He said suddenly. Yes? All Might asked questioningly, mentally cringing inside. He was the symbol of peace. What in the world was he doing? Showing his other form to some random kid and then answering the kid's questions. So it isn't a disguise quirk, or an illusion quirk. Izuku muttered. It's like one of those plots from the animes floating around the internet. Large strength enhancement that changes what the owner looks like in use. Excuse me? All Might for the 3rd time. Are you listening to me? Izuku shook his head, still mumbling. In a swift motion, he jumped up and started putting his notebook back into his backpack. Once done, he swung it over his shoulder and walked toward the door leading back to the ground. I have a feeling that I jumped into something I wasn't ready for, Izuku said over his shoulder, his hand hovering over the doorknob. I'll keep your secret. I don't really want the symbol of peace to lose his popularity. Wait, where are you going? All Might asked. He felt completely out of the loop right now, staring at Izuku like he was an alien. Home. I'm not telling anyone about this, Izuku said. His brain had already connected what would happen if the world found out what All Might really looked like. He looked like he was dying. Then why did you grab onto my leg? All Might demanded, desperately trying to gain control of the situation again. All Might, Izuku said, his voice void of any emotion. Do you think a quirkless person can become a hero? All Might looked at him quizzically, his plan of gaining control falling to pieces by the sudden question. They don't have any special powers to defend or fight with. It would only be dangerous if they became a hero. Izuku nodded, as if he already expected the outcome. I don't know why you look like that. I don't know your quirk. I don't know how big of a secret this is. But I'll keep it that way. Goodbye, All Might. Izuku opened the door and left, not looking back at the confused number one. Tears burned his eyes and he shook them off. He didn't even want to be a hero anymore. Eri believed he was the greatest hero the world had ever seen, and that was good enough for him. If he could stay as jokester, stay in the shadows, he didn't even need to try out for UA. Izuku shook his head, clenching the straps of his backpack harder. He kicked a small rock with his foot, seeing it slide across the sidewalk. Without realizing it, his feet had taken him straight home. Izuku sat at his desk, pulling out his observation notebook. The cover was burned and most of the pages were waterlogged, but he could still save them. He opened up to a blank page and, grabbing a sharpened pencil, started sketching in what All Might looked like. All Might, the symbol of peace, was nothing more than a skeleton with a strength quirk. Izuku wished with all his might he had never hung onto the hero, had never seen him transform. Izuku growled to himself, the sketch half completed. He tore it out of his notebook and crumpled it up, throwing it straight into the trash bin. His mind was whirling, constantly going over the events of the day. He needed a break. Izuku slipped into his jokester costume, feeling relief in the tight suit and full-face mask. As he passed through the window, he got a look of himself in the mirror hanging on the wall. He looked different, he decided. He looked like a villain. Izuku slipped out the window, heading to the apartment roof. It looked a lot like the one he had just been on. Izuku shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. He had more to worry about. Had the Quintessence to worry about. Izuku grabbed his grappling hook from his belt and shot it, lightly jumping from rooftop to rooftop. The rush of the wind in his hair reminded him briefly of the other flight he had had, and Izuku almost lost his balance. He stumbled a few feet forward on the next building before. Running, sprinting from rooftop to rooftop. Just like he always ran. Izuku gritted his teeth and bit down on his tongue. He flew through the air, landing on the next building. Just as he did, an explosion rocked the floor, making Izuku fall to a knee. Izuku looked up immediately, recognizing the explosion. That only happened when Missile was getting angry and losing control of his quirk. Bakugo was in trouble. Izuku didn't even need to think about what he was doing. In a flash, he's shooting his hook and swinging like Black Widow towards the sound. He landed on the rooftop of a building and ran to the edge, looking down. A crowd of civilians was gathered on the side of the street, all of them screaming and pointing to the small road leading between closely built houses. Izuku's breath caught in his throat. The houses were on fire, falling apart from the inside. In the middle of the road, a large glob of green slime moved and rippled. It was the sludge villain that had attacked Izuku today. But All Might caught him. Izuku hissed. I saw it. His thoughts flashed back. All Might had stuffed the bottles into the pockets of his pants. The same pants Izuku had hung onto. It was Izuku's fault that the sludge villain was free. Another explosion boomed through the air. Izuku could see the slight form of someone stuck in the green sludge. So the villain had a hostage. Blonde spiky hair poked through the slime, and Izuku almost threw up. Bakugo was the hostage. What were the heroes doing? Kamui Woods was hanging off to the side, as if he had no idea what was going on. Mount Lady was stuck because the road was too small. Backdraft was using his quirk to put out the fire and Death Arms was busy pulling civilians from the rubble. No other heroes were on the site. Anger ignited like a blaze inside Izuku. What were those heroes thinking? Their first priority would always be to save people. So why weren't they saving Bakugo? Izuku got the slightest glimpse of a man with bright yellow hair, All Might in his skeletonized form. Why wasn't he doing anything? Izuku jumped to the floor behind Backdraft, not even caring to keep the rage in check. What are you thinking? He yelled at the pro-heroes. You have to save the hostage. Backdraft looked at him like he had grown another head. All civilians have to stay back. We can't risk the villain reaching another person. Izuku glared. So that's what they were worried about. Shut it, Backdraft, he growled. You can do plenty more than this. I've seen it. He walked past the hero, bumping into them on purpose. Death Arms. You have a strength quirk, right? Then use it. Tear off the walls of the building and the people can leave by themselves. Death Arms looked shocked by the sudden shouts. Izuku clenched his fists, remembering the drowning feeling he had felt. Bakugo had been in there for a long time. Izuku could barely even imagine it. Izuku shot his grappling hook, completely missing the sludge villain and hitting the building behind him. The villain laughed. You're a terrible aim, it screeched. Izuku smirked. I wasn't aiming for you, he yelled, the gun jerking and pulling him through the air. In a blur, he passed by the sludge villain and grabbed Bakugo's arm through the villain. The gun fumbled but pulled both boys away. No, the villain shrieked. Izuku gently set Bakugo down on the floor, tossing a granola bar his way. Eat this, Izuku said. You need to clear the sludge from your system? Bakugo looked at him before glaring at Izuku. Jokester, what are you doing here? He hissed under his breath. You could have gotten killed. I had this handled. You need to leave, missile. Izuku retorted. Get back to the heroes. I'll take care of the villain. Izuku didn't wait for a response, pulling out a small metal pole from behind his back and stepping up to the villain. He spun the pole in his hand, and it unfolded to a full-length bow staff. An burnt smell filled the air as electricity crackled at the tip. You? The villain yelled. You're the one to blame. The sludge moved up and down, and the two yellow eyes popped to the top. Shut up, Izuku said. I've been having a pretty bad day, and you're making it worse. The villain screamed in rage, and a stream of sludge shot towards Izuku. He dodged to the side and slammed his staff into the stream. The villain shrieked in pain as electricity raced through the liquid. Izuku jumped backward, landing next to Backdraft and Kamui Woods. Kamui Woods stepped in front of him. Thank you for the help, civilian, Kamui Woods said. But leave the villain up to us. Izuku glared daggers at them. Like you left the hostage alone? He spat. I thought heroes were supposed to put everything before themselves. The pro-heroes clearly did not have an answer. Izuku growled to himself and pushed his way to the front. Backdraft, use your ultimate move and get rid of the fire on the left side, where it needs it the most. Kamui Woods, the villain is going to start spreading out. You need to build a quick barrier with death arms to keep him from getting to the civilians. Tell Mount Lady to block off the road entrance. But Kamui Woods started to say. Go, Izuku said. I've already seen your pathetic excuse for heroism. You need to prove that you can be better than that. Kamui Woods nodded and rushed off, followed closely by Backdraft. The Quintessence would have followed without any hesitation, Izuku thought darkly. The hero world really hadn't been the best to him today. Izuku grabbed his bow staff, angling it towards the ground. He stepped up to the villain, a fire in his eye. It took a lot of willpower not to shoot those yellow eyes with his gun because of the mood he was in. Izuku lunged, and within a blink he had already moved behind the sludge monster and stabbed his bow staff into the liquid, hearing the electricity crackle as the liquid was fried. The villain screamed in pain, sending another stream of liquid at Izuku. He nimbly dodged and ended up at another section of the liquid and fried it as well. This kept happening, a deadly dance of slime and electricity. Mount Lady stared numbly as Izuku twirled and danced and leapt like a ballerina engaged in a dangerous combat. With every pose, he slowly shrunk the villain until it was nothing more than a small puddle of sludge. Izuku slowed down, resting on his staff wearily. In front of him, the villain was barely big enough to lift a small bulge from the middle of the body. How could you? The villain screamed, its voice a high stiletto from losing so much body mass. The two yellow eyes stared up at him, burning with anger. You're supposed to be a hero. You aren't supposed to hurt the villain. Izuku leaned in close. It's a good thing I'm not a hero. Izuku spun on his heel, a glare settling on his face again. Heroes, go get something the villain won't be able to break through. And get the police as well, call the fire department. We need to clean this up. Kamui Woods and Death Arms looked at each other next to the weak barrier they had built from debris. Kamui Woods slightly nodded, and Death Arms sighed and pulled out a small phone, punching in numbers. Before long, the police and fire department had shown up. Bakugo had joined the heroes again and was currently being checked by the first responders when one of the policemen had the nerve to walk up to Izuku. "I know you," the police officer shouted. Izuku blinked, and suddenly the police officer whipped out his gun and pointed it at Izuku. "You're a member of the Quintessence?" The crowd of civilians gasped, and Izuku sighed in disappointment. In a quick move, he knocked the gun out of the officer's hand and held the tip of his bow staff up to the officer's throat. "Wait," Kamui Wood said. He pushed the officer away from Izuku. "He doesn't understand. We would like to say thank you." "Thank you?" The officer exploded. "He's a villain. This villain just saved the lives of everyone here," Kamui Wood said coldly. "Go make sure that the civilians are evacuated safely." The officer shut his mouth, but still didn't stop from glaring at Izuku. "You heroes have quite the guts," Izuku muttered, slowly raising his voice. "Don't you have any respect for being a hero?" The heroes, Mount Lady, Kamui Woods, Backdraft, and Death Arms had gathered around Izuku. Bagwo had also finished getting checked up and was standing at the side. They stayed silent. "Don't you realize your actions could have killed the hostage?" Izuku continued. "What was your name?" Bakugo started. Katsuki Bakugo. "Sir, you nearly got Bakugo killed?" Izuku said. "Not only that, but the villain was able to cause collateral damage because you couldn't get enough courage to put your life on the lines. What sort of heroes are you?" "Excuse me?" Mount Lady said, in her shrunken form. "Who are you anyway?" Izuku clenched his fist. "If you would like to know, I am a member of the Quintessence." "You mean?" Kamui Wood started. Izuku nodded. "Just because you are a hero doesn't mean you do everything right," he said sharply. "Remember that. I have business to attend to." "Bakugo?" Bakugo flinched. "Yes, sir? You have a strong quirk. I'm sure you will be able to become a hero. Just keep in mind what happened today." Izuku cast one last glance at the heroes. "You are still humans even if you are pros." Izuku shot his grappling hook and rushed away. His blood was starting to calm down, and he took a deep breath in. Maybe that fight was exactly what he had needed in order to slow down. Finally, it was the day of the UA entrance exams. Shinso took a deep breath in front of the UA gates. He had been training for months to get this right. He just hoped it would be worth it. Shinso confidently took a step in. He didn't miss the glances his classmates gave him as he walked. They may be the only people here who knew about his quirk, but he could tell it was starting to spread. Well, as soon as he finished this exam, he wouldn't need to notice the looks people gave him. Shinso followed the rest of the examinees to a large room where they would take the written portion of the exam. "Everyone please grab a copy of the exam and a pencil from the front of the room." Snipe, the teacher watching over, hit. Shinso gave him a one-around, and the analyzing lessons jokester had given him kicked him. Strong but not incredibly so. His arms were considerably more toned than his legs, probably because of the reliance he put on guns. He only carried around one gun, which was a weakness in itself. He was probably trained in a type of martial arts but still preferred to stay in the back. From the looks of it, he had multiple hidden bullets he could get to in a flash, but not an unlimited amount. Shinso was slightly disappointed with the hero, then realized that he wouldn't be disappointed if Jokester had never taught him how to analyze. Shinso grabbed a copy of the entrance exam, right after a boy with red hair and sharp teeth grabbed his own. Shinso sat down in the back, next to a boy with tape dispensers at his elbow and another with a triangle-shaped head who sat down incredibly quietly. Shinso opened the packet and couldn't stop himself from grinning. Compared to the work Jokester had given him, this was preschool stuff. He zoomed through the exam, laughing at some of the ridiculously easy questions and the stressed faces of those around him. Surprisingly, Tape Boy seemed to be enjoying his time as well. Shinso finished with more than enough time to retake it again. He checked through it twice and chewed on the edge of the pencil. Looking at the clock, he sighed and put his head down, mulling over his thoughts. Shinso didn't know what the physical part of the exam, even though he was 90% sure that Jokester knew. He had tried pestering it out of the leader, but it never came up, which was annoying. Still, Shinso was infinitely grateful for Jokester's help. Shinso was going over his battle stance in his head again. He wished he had brought his capture weapon along, but Jokester had said that it would give him away. Instead, he was going to use the martial arts he had been training with. Alright, time is over. Please put your exams in the basket as you leave, Snipes said. Head towards the auditorium to get a briefing on the next part. Shinso walked out the door, gently placing his packet in the basket with the rest of the exams. As he walked down the hall, something moved in the corner of his eye. He stopped and stared out one of the larger windows on the side of the hallway, scrunching his eyes up. In the heat of the summer, he could barely make out the shape of someone standing in the shade of a small grove of trees. The figure flashed a thumbs up and disappeared. Shinso blinked before grinning. He knew Jokester had wanted a look. Shinso turned around, ready to keep following the rest of the students. Before he took a step, though, he froze. The hallway was empty. It seems he had taken longer staring out the window than he had thought. Slightly panicked, Shinso started heading down the way he thought he was supposed to go. It, of course, was of no use. UA was worse than the corn mazes he had gone in as a kid, and each hallway looked exactly like the last. Shinso wandered around, hopelessly lost and somehow making his way to the second floor. Biting his tongue, Shinso turned a corner and abruptly ran into someone. Stumbling back, he muttered an apology and looked at who it was. Freaking Eraserhead. Crap. He was barely able to stop the gasp from escaping his lips. He bowed his head slightly and said another quick apology, praying that the underground pro hero wouldn't find out who he was. Eraserhead nodded. Based on your clothes, you're an examinee. What are you doing on the second floor? Straight to the point. Shinso was able to name quite a few times when this had been extremely helpful in a fight. I'm sorry, sir, Shinso said. I got lost on my way to the auditorium. I really don't know how I ended up here. Eraserhead sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. Of course. Follow me, he said gruffly, turning around quickly. Shinso stood frozen to the spot for a few seconds before breathing in relief and quietly following. Eraserhead led Shinso through the twisting halls of UA, ending up near two very large double doors. Here you are, Eraserhead said. Just walk inside. The briefing hasn't started yet. Thank you, sir, Shinso said, bowing again. May I ask who you are? Just a teacher here, Eraserhead said, yawning. Hurry up already. This is important. Yes, sir, Shinso said, opening the door. So Eraserhead was a teacher at UA? Oh, this was going to get so much more exciting. Shinso internally grinned. He couldn't wait. Are ya ready to rumble? Present Mike screamed the second Shinso walked into the room. He winced and rubbed his ear. This was Eraserhead's friend? A loud blonde with hair that stuck out like a stick? Shinso quietly took one of the pamphlets from the messy table and took one of the seats in the back. Half listening, Shinso opened the pamphlet and scanned the contents. A mock battle against multiple differently pointed robots? Jokester must be having a party right now, Shinso thought. As Present Mike neared the end of the presentation, a kid with dark blue hair and glasses stood up, pointing out the final robot in the pamphlet. Shinso rolled his eyes. Geez, that kid acted exactly like Flashkick. Shinso played with his ear, going through his capture weapon movements again. Glasses Kid sat back down, apparently pleased with the answer Present Mike had given him. Everyone move out. Present Mike yelled. Go to your exam grounds. The students slowly moved through the hallways, most of them with concentration written across their faces. It took forever for the hallway to clear up and for Shinso to arrive at Ground B, where he was supposed to take the test. In front of him, he noticed a girl with short brown hair. Taking deep breaths in and out, pressing the tips of her fingers together. Shinso glanced at everyone else who was taking it with him. Some guy with really yellow hair and a metal belt around his waist. The Glasses Kid was also in his group, carefully doing quad stretches. No one else stood out. Go! Present Mike yelled from the tower. Shinso jumped and immediately started running out of habit. He saw Glasses Kid, brown-haired girl, and belt guy do the same as everyone else just stood in place. What are you waiting for? The battlefield has no starting times. present mic screamed. Hurry up! Get a move on! That was the warning call that got everyone moving. Unfortunately for them, the group of 4 was already far ahead. The glasses kid had already took out 2 robots, and Shinso wasn't far behind. His breath quickened as he turned a sharp corner, almost immediately taking down a 1-pointer. 5 points. He dodged a metallic fist from another and kicked straight into its chest, dislodging the power core. 7 points. Shinso moved quickly and quietly through the alleyways of the fake city he was fighting in. While most of the kids were working in the middle of the streets, dealing with what scarce robots they could find, Shinso and the other 3 beginners were racking up the points from the shadows. 14. 22. Shinso clenched his teeth, destroying the robot that got him up to 27 points. His arms and legs were sore and starting to get slower. He still had 5 more minutes before the exam was over. The brown-haired girl rounded the corner, leading one of the robots straight into a metal pole. While it was on the ground, Shinso watched her twist the head off and crush the main controls. She wiped the sweat from her forehead and stepped away, noticing Shinso. "Oh, hi," she said. "You're the kid who ran forward with me at the beginning." "Shinso Hitoshi," Shinso said. "And you?" "Achiko Uraraka," she said. "It was pretty smart of you to just stay in the alleyways. Less people to get in your way and more robots to take down." "Same with you," Shinso said, nodding his head. Uraraka smiled, and suddenly the ground rocked and echoed. Shinso saw a lot of kids fall down, but he and Uraraka stayed up. Uraraka's eyebrows scrunched up in worry and she peered out of the alleyway, only to shoot back inside. "Giant robot," she told Shinso. "Really big. And worth 0 points?" Shinso grinned. "So they finally let out the 0-pointers. That means there are less robots now. If we move to the outskirts of the city, we will have more chances of getting points." "Good idea," Uraraka said. They took a step forward before a scream pierced the air. "He's going to get squashed," someone shrieked. Shinso barely registered what was happening before he and Uraraka sprinted out of the alleyway, coming to a stop. A random kid had been hit by a pile of debris and was laying unconscious in the middle of the street. Above him, the 0-pointer slowly trundled forward, only seconds from squishing the boy. "Shinso," Uraraka yelled. "You need to save the boy. I'll keep the robot company. Lead him towards that office building." Shinso responded, pointing as he ran forward. "More space and he'll go less berserk." Shinso dashed forward, grabbing the unconscious boy moments before he could be squished. He ran and took shelter behind a car, laying the boy down and peeking out to see Uraraka. She was carrying a large boulder above her head, easily 20 times her size. Strength quirk, maybe? Shinso thought. The robot swiped at her, and she nimbly dodged away, still holding the boulder. Just before the robot could touch her, she smashed the boulder down onto the hand, trapping it. Grinning, Shinso took off. He scampered up the leg of the robot, coming to a stop at a place where wires showed through a crack in the metal armor. The robot teetered and Shinso almost lost his balance before grabbing onto one of the wires. He started tearing out random wires to see if it would work. Below him, Uraraka was busy dodging in and out of the robot's feet. With every step the ground shook, and Shinso could tell she was tired and had overused her quirk. The ground thundered, and she fell to the floor, immediately covering her head. Shinso quickly grabbed the bright red wire and pulled with all his might. The robot slowed, stopped, and powered down, its feet away from smashing Uraraka. Shinso breathed in a sigh of relief, sliding down the robot's trapped arm and jumping to the floor. Uraraka looked up at him, her eyes squinted. "Grab my hand," Shinso said, extending. She reached up and grabbed it, and Shinso helped her get out from under the foot. Uraraka dusted herself off as she leaned on Shinso for support. 3 loud alarms rang through the city, signaling the end of the exam. "Darn it," Uraraka said, smiling sheepishly. "I was hoping for a bit more points, but I guess 30 will have to do." Shinso nodded. "Oh well," she said, doing an arm stretch. "At least it's over. Hey, wouldn't it be cool if we got in the same class? How many points did you get?" 27. Shinso answered honestly. And yes, I think it would be. Anyways, thanks for saving my life. Uraraka said. I'll return the favor one day. She looked around and noticed a big group of people. I guess that's where the nurses are. I'm gonna go over there. See you around. Goodbye. Shinso said, watching her limp off. He almost wanted to go help her, but she looked determined to do this herself. I'll see you around. Shinso said quietly, watching a dark shadow disappear from the top of the roof. Shinso got in. Jokester sent his congratulations, and even sent Shinso a little party money to get whatever he wanted. It was the first day of school, and Shinso couldn't wait. Finally, no one could call him a villain if he was in the hero course. He also hoped that Uraraka had made it, though he guessed she probably had. Shinso stepped up to the large doors labeled 1A. He took a deep breath and slid it open. The classroom was empty, which makes sense. Shinso was a good half an hour before school even started. He had wanted to use this time to learn about the people in his class. Shinso took out a small list from his backpack, sitting in the back of the room. Scribbled on it were the names of 19 people, all of his classmates. He hadn't been able to find out who his teacher was, which was a bummer. Shinso scanned the list. Yep, Achiko Uraraka was in his class. That was nice. Everyone else he had never heard about, except for Shoto Todoroki. Shinso wasn't surprised that the number 2 hero's son was in his class. His phone buzzed and Shinso frowned. He pulled it out and saw it was a text from Jokester, toward the entire Quintessence. Jokester, don't scream. I wanted it to be this way. Asterisk, Shinso shivered at the ominous message. Don't scream at what? Shinso was about to text back before the door slid open. The glasses kid at the entrance exam walked through, nodding to Shinso before sitting down in the middle of the classroom. Funnily enough, the glasses kid also got a text that put a worried look on his face. It probably was nothing like mine, Shinso thought. 3 more people entered. A kid with a perpetual glare on his face, the red-haired person Shinso had seen at the written exam, and a girl with pink skin and pink hair. The last girl reminded him of Venom Queen the way she moved and talked. After a while, 19 of the students had gathered together. The teacher hadn't shown up, and neither had someone called Nito Monoma. Shinso looked around the room before getting another text. Jokester, but this is boring. You haven't figured it out yet? Asterisk, Shinso saw the pink girl take out her phone and test something. Her name was Mina Ishido, he remembered. Just as she put it away, another text appeared. Venom Queen. Figure out what? This is rude Jokester, sad face. It's the first day of school. Jokester, look around you. Asterisk, Shinso immediately saw every single person in his class look around wildly. His eyes widened. No way. It couldn't be. Jokester, finally. Mind meld gets it. If you tried talking to each other, you would figure it out. Don't worry, I locked the door. If you have time. Asterisk, Shinso heard the person sitting next to him, Hantasiro, mutter something under his breath before looking up and making eye contact with him. Shinso almost wanted to gag at the déjà vu Black Widow. Hey, can someone check if the door is locked? Kaminari Denki said aloud. Why in the world would we do that? Bakugo Katsuki said, rolling his eyes. No reason. Kaminari stood up and tried the handle, only for nothing to happen. Wait, the door is actually locked? How did he do that? Oops. Mina said, covering her mouth. I mean, never mind. Yep, that was definitely Venom Queen. Shinso slowly pieced it together in his head, and immediately wanted to yell at Jokester. Why didn't he tell them about Class 1A? Shinso took a deep breath. Testing, Quintessence, 1, 2, 3, anybody hear me? The entire class looked at him like he was an alien or a ghost. What did you just say? Shoji Mezu asked quietly. Shinso took a quick look around the room. Only one camera, but it had suspiciously been covered in duct tape. Kraken, right? I could tell by your arms, he told Shoji. Seriously, hurry up and figure it out. What did Jokester just say? Wait a second. Mind meld? Kirishima choked out. Impenetrable? Ida asked. Flash kick? Uraraka asked. Shinso grinned. Man, this is great. Let me guess, you asked Jokester for help getting in UA? He must have kept it a secret that we all got in. The classmates looked at each other, jaws dropped. This entire class is made up from Quintessence members? Kaminari asked incredulously. Shinso shook his head. Everyone is already here. I guess whoever Nito Monoma is, he isn't a member. There weren't enough of us to fill the class. Wow, Pentagram, you're so pretty, Uraraka said. I've never seen you without your mask. It might be better if we call each other by our actual names. So no one realizes. Yaoyorozu said. Nice to meet you, I'm Momo Yaoyorozu. Tenya Ida. Ijiro Kirishima. One by one, the class went around and introduced themselves. Shinso couldn't stop from smiling ear to ear. The Quintessence were going to be his classmates. That's what Jokester had meant. Hey, anyone in there? Someone called from the door. Who locked the door? Mina quickly tried the doorknob. 1 second, it got locked, she called to the stranger, turning back to the Quintessence. Anyone got lockpicking sets? Bakugo Missile rolled his eyes. There's a key on the podium, he said, feet up on desk. Mina looked around and grabbed it triumphantly. She swung the door open, and the final student stepped in. He had blonde hair and gray eyes. Oh, everyone is already here, he said. Nice to meet you, I'm Nito Monoma. Shinso quietly took out his phone and started texting. No one tell him. He isn't a member. Venom Queen. But it'll be so hard keeping it a secret. I saw Eraserhead during the exam. He's a teacher here. We have to be careful. Soundtrap. Eraserhead. That sucks. Jokester. It'll definitely be a test, winky face. Hope you can pass. By the way, meeting at the house tonight. Celebration party. Asterisk, Monoma blinked. Oh, did everyone already exchange numbers or something? He asked. You're all texting. Gyro, Soundtrap, looked around. Oh, that's weird. I was texting my mom. She said she wanted me to have an amazing day. I don't think we've exchanged numbers. Mina said. I had a friend wish me good luck for my first day. I wanted to text them back. The rest of the class collectively nodded. Nito rose an eyebrow but didn't question it. The door opened again. Someone walked in. Shinso wanted to scream. Of course Eraserhead was his teacher. Why not? Sit down, the pro hero said gruffly. The Quintessence immediately sat down and quieted. Nito was a little behind, but he had also never seen Eraserhead before. Eraserhead walked to the front of the room and scratched on the chalkboard. My name is Shota Aizawa, but you will call me Aizawa-sensei. Shinso sent a glance to Soundtrap. They were the only two members emotionally connected with the underground pro hero, and they had just learned his name. Aizawa threw the chalk back down. You have 15 minutes to get changed and meet me in the field. Go. But Nito tried to say. No buts. Hurry. The Quintessence didn't need to be told twice. They hurried through the halls, following the signs to the changing rooms next to the gym. Nito looked like he had no idea what was going on, and Shinso took pity on him. Fighting with Eraserhead had taught him that the hero would never go easy. Eraserhead scowled when they finally arrived. You took 20 minutes. Next time be faster. Eraserhead tossed a ball Bakugo's way. Sir? What's that for? Mina asked. Eraserhead smiled, and Shinso got chills. The beginning of your first test. That sucked. Wait Force announced. School had ended, and they were all sitting back at the base. Why in the world was Eraserhead our teacher? Even though he couldn't see, Shinso could tell Jokester was grinning. I thought he would make a good match. You already know him, after all. He almost had me expelled. Crystal Clear sputtered. Because I couldn't run fast. At least he didn't expel any of us. Pentagram said, scratching her mask. It was a logical ruse, of course. By the way, you never told me you were rich. Wait Force said. I mean, I thought so, but still. Quintessence, calm down. Jokester said. I called you here for more than a celebratory party. I called you here for Eri. Eri looked up. She had grown a lot in the past 2 years. Her scars were still visible, but her hair was longer and her horn was smaller. For me, she asked curiously, playing with a butterfly knife in the way Black Mare had taught her. Of course. We already found out, so now it's time to show Eri. Impenetrable said. Show me what? She asked. What did you find out? Eri, Jokester said, his voice gentle. Do you know who we are? Eri looked at him, confused. Of course. You're my big brothers and sisters. We're family. But do you know who we really are? Eri scrunched her eyebrows. I've never seen your faces before. How am I supposed to know? Jokester smiled at her. I think it's time for a change. Who would like to go first? I will. Waitforce said. Go first in what? Eri started to say before falling deathly silent as Waitforce removed her mask. Eri watched with wide eyes as Uraraka shook out her hair and smiled at her. Older sister? Eri asked quietly, staring. Uraraka laughed. Nice to meet you, Eri Saiza. My name is Ochako Uraraka, but you can call me Okenai. Soundtrap also removed her mask. Nice to meet you too, Eri Saiza. I'm Jairukyuka, but you can call me older sister Kyo. One by one, they removed their masks. Eri didn't say a thing, just stared at each one as they revealed who they were. Each person greeted Eri using her full name before saying their own and what she could call them. Eri looked at each one of them, and they noticed that her eyes were glistening and tears were starting to fall from her face. You all, she tried to say, but the words got choked in the back of her throat. Uraraka swooped in for a hug, laughing and crying at the same time. Oh, Eri. Eri, she said, hugging her with everything. The rest of the group joined into one big dog pile, hugging and crying and laughing all together. Izuku cried too, just a little, but he stayed out of the circle, and he didn't take off his mask. That was the first day Eri Saiza saw the faces of her family. Izuku tucked Eri into bed, whispering goodnight to her before leaving. The tears had stained his cheeks, and he wished he could turn back time and join in. He shook his head and clenched his hands. He had work to do. Izuku was careful exiting the warehouse, checking to make sure that no one saw him. He put all the security systems back online and closed the door gently. He felt like someone was watching him, but it could just be him being paranoid. Izuku traveled the normal way to his apartment complex before arriving. Instead of slipping through his window, he decided to take off the mask and walk through the hallways like a normal being. It was pretty late at night, so no one was out, but it made Izuku feel comfortable. He opened his door with the key tucked away in a small spot. Shuffling in, Izuku yawned as he flicked on multiple light switches before catching himself and pinching his arm. It wasn't the time to get tired. The door to his bedroom was closed, just slightly ajar. Izuku opened it up and checked to make sure that the window was closed. After looking around the room just in case, he nodded and closed the door again. This time, he went to the master bedroom, what had formerly been his mother's room. Izuku opened the door, and it made him a little sad to see the perfectly made bed that hadn't been touched in years. How long? He couldn't remember. The part he had really came here for was contained in the corner of the room, on the wooden desk his mother had been particularly fond of. The top was covered with glass and liquids, each of a different color. Tubes of all types twisted and turned. The boiler sat merrily burning, keeping the glass at a constant temperature. Izuku pushed his chair aside, preferring instead to stand up. He tweaked different liquids flowing through the tubes in a never-ending loop, and a small stream of the clear liquid shot out of the rectangular-shaped bottle. It slowly filled up a small cylindrical vial to the brim. Finally, it had taken 2 years. 2 years of working and solving and testing and experimenting for this moment. 2 years of collecting and studying. 2 years. Izuku took a deep breath and stilled his nerves. This was it. He carefully worked the vial out of the holder and plugged it into a small syringe. Serum Z was finally finished. With a little bit of DNA from someone with a minor healing quirk, the liquid should be exactly what he needed. Ever since meeting Batou Tanaki, this was something Izuku could barely stop thinking about. The day when quirks became more than just genes. They became tools. The syringe plunged in.